Good evening, everyone. I have a motion to return the regular board meeting to public session. Mr. Bullen, Ms. Bullen, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. I call the regular board meeting to order. All the board members are present. Dr. Bullen, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the
Republic
republic
for which it stands,
and
one nation, under God, indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be advised that in the event of fire emergency and an evacuation should be necessary, an alarm will sound. Please note all marked emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. At this time, we request everyone turn their cell phones and other electronic devices to silent. Thank you. Our next meeting is a special meeting, the budget work session, with the community forum that will follow at the Casey Middle School Library. May I have a motion to hold a special meeting budget work session starting at 6:30 p.m. on March 26th? Ms. Kasparak-Bogner, Dr. Littman, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Brownhall, recognition.
Thank you very much, President Singh. So tonight, our school spotlight takes us to Mill Middle School as we highlight their student volunteer group, The Herd. We want all of our students to understand the importance of building relationships and community. And this group of students meets regularly to do just that. I'd now like to welcome Principal Chris McDuffie, the Herd advisors, Megan Quino and Kelly Ganji, and students to share more. And Megan, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. Awesome.
Thank you for that, Dr. Brown Hall, and good evening, everyone. Our Herd students and advisors do a wonderful job, and I can't say enough about how proud I am of them. Their selflessness and acts of kindness have forged strong connections within our community neighbors, be it volunteering their time at a local nursing home or organizing a warm clothing drive in the winter for others who may be less fortunate or down on their luck. Our Herd is a constant reminder that we are all part of something bigger than ourselves and that our actions have the power to make a real difference in the lives of others. With that, I'm going to pass it over to two of our Herd advisors, Kelly Ganji and Megan Quino, to talk a little bit more about some of the activities that they've done throughout the year.
Good evening. First off, I'd like to thank our Board of Education and the Williamsville Central School District for providing these opportunities for our students with the clubs and allowing us teachers to be the advisors to these tremendous students that we're blessed to have in our classrooms and the families that support us in everything that we do. Our Herd is driven by our students. What we do comes from the suggestions and the desire of what our students come to us with, and we have many of them. On any given meeting, we may have over 100 students. Keeping them all occupied can be a challenge at times, but they find a way, and they use their special talents to come through and shine, whether they're making posters for Spirit Weeks or coming up with ideas for Canvas and how to use social media to help us share out to the parents on what we can do as a community to support those within our own community and also those within the Western New York area. We've had community fundraisers to help our punt organization, specifically to support our Williamsville Central School District students who have fought pediatric cancer. Our students have learned how to build beds by attending Sleep in Heavenly Peace, located right at the Eastern Hills Mall. So they've learned how to use tools, but also saw the greater good in what they were doing. There's so many things that we've done throughout the year, but we also focus on keeping it fun. Our students drive our activities within the building so that we promote during school and after school fun activities. And we also create different elements within the classrooms so that every student can be a part of the activities and not just the Herd. I'll let Mrs. Quino jump in.
I think she covered most of it, but just want to reiterate that our student body really drives all the ideas that are brought to the table, whether it's giving back to our community or bringing spirit to Mill. It's student-based and led by them, and we have some of our herders here tonight in attendance that are our go-to team of helpers. And we're just so grateful to be able to work with such a phenomenal group of students that are changing our lives, but are also changing the lives of so many people in our community. So thank you for highlighting us.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Have our video. Thank you.
Mill Middle Herd is students at Mill working together to give back to our community and also bring school spirit to the building, with the students leading the ideas in those activities. We as a herd try to give back to not only our Williamsville community, but our Buffalo community, donating to different organizations and hosting different events for students to be a part of.
We're baking for good. We're sharing what we're learning.
Bake for Good is in partnership with the King Arthur Flour Company. Students take home a kit, and with their families, they bake 2 loaves of bread, and then they donate one to a local food pantry, and then they keep one to enjoy with their own families. So it's a wonderful partnership with King Arthur, where we get to teach about the science of baking, and then also they get to give back to the community.
It's just like really fun, and you're helping out as well as having fun, and it's all paying off and going to good causes.
It's really cool to know that you're helping people, not just like in your school community, but also like the Williamsville community, and it just makes you like really happy and makes you feel good.
1 yeast, 2 bags. Thank you.
Within the herd, we put our students out into the community to help support our senior citizens and also other organizations that support children. And what I see these students come through with is just so energizing for me. It makes me want to be here more for them so that I can provide them with the opportunities they're asking for, and also to bring that school spirit and that positive vibe inside of our building. So not just our herd members feel it, but our faculty, staff, and students.
We're going to let you take your vote so that you have your say in the spirit week that you want.
It is really cool to be a part of Herd because we know what's coming next, and we plan stuff, and it's not just teachers planning it, there's some kids, so you get both sides of what people think.
We are all about building community and connections in our building. The Herd as a club really shines in that aspect, and it's really where kids want to be. I mean, at a giving meeting, we have over 100 students that join us to be a part of giving back and having a say in what's happening in the building.
It's a really rewarding experience, and we hope that we're creating a lifelong path for these students to continue to volunteer within the communities that they live in.
That is awesome. Go McDuffie. Awesome.
Can they share a few words?
Please.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you can also tell us your name and what grade you're in.
Oh, it's a good one.
Hello, my name is Henry Noe, and I'm in grade 6. I love the Herd. I sometimes have to miss it, but I still love to be involved.
Awesome.
I'm in video announcements, and we do like a video announcements every Friday, and we try to promote Herd a lot in what we're doing, and it's really fun to Herd the whole aspect, and it's really great to know that we're helping people and having fun at the same time, and it's awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Henry.
My name is Zoe Peter. I'm in 6th grade. But Herd is just like a great community, and it makes you like feel really good when you do all the stuff for the community, and like it's just really fun at the same time too.
Absolutely. Awesome.
My name is Josie Lester, and I'm in 6th grade, and I love doing the Herd because even like though you just like kind of hang out with your friends, you're also like helping the community, and you're like we like collect canned tabs and stuff, and we like do stuff to help the community.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Hey. Principal McDuffie. Great job, Herd students. So next, we are spotlighting the impact of our family and consumer science classes, which are engaged in not only learning lifelong skills, but helping children in need. I'd like to welcome Jamie Pitnell, the district's Director of Family and Consumer Sciences, the Arts, Business, and Music. Director Pitnell. There we go.
Hello, thank you so much for having us tonight. So we're going to stay in Mill and be featuring the Family and Consumer Sciences program specifically from Mill Middle School as well. Family and Consumer Sciences is housed in all of our middle schools, and it's really a cornerstone program in helping our children really prepare for the real world. Finances, sewing, cooking, all of the things that they need just to be, really. So we're very proud of our program and very proud of all the support it provides our students as they navigate middle school. Tonight, what we are specifically spotlighting is in the classrooms of Andrea Pecori and Kristen Fry. This year, they decided to embark on a sewing project that not only gives the kids the skills that they need to learn for that task, but gives back to the community in a much larger way. So what they did is they did a pillowcase project.
Nice. Very nice.
And what's so special about this project is every single pillowcase will be donated to Oshai Children's Hospital.
Wow.
And every pillowcase comes with a little letter from the students who created it. This one says, "Be brave like a T-Rex."
Oh.
And then it's a T-Rex pillowcase if you can't see them. But they all come with some words of inspiration, and they will be donated on the 19th, actually. And we're very, very excited to celebrate that. And also the takeaway that our students will have for the impact that the children who receive these will also have. So
Awesome.
thank you. And we have a video to spotlight.
Thank you, Director Pitnell. Thank you very much.
So the pillowcase project, this is our first year actually giving it a shot. We just decided that one of our themes in Family and Consumer Sciences class this year was to try to give back and make community connections. And we just kind of thought of this one and hit the ground running. I think it was really amazing to watch the kids kind of come together and put a lot of effort into the donated pillowcases. They made one for themselves as well, but they really cared about the ones that were being given to the children. They knew that it was something that was going to, hopefully brighten the day for a child who was, in a hospital for an extended stay.
In 7th grade, every student made 2 pillowcases, and we're going to be donating them to Oshai Children's Hospital.
As we made all these pillowcases, as you can see, we added cards that were handmade that were like positive notes to make them like feel better, and we hand folded and washed all of the pillowcases, and it was very fun.
Thought of how good of an impact it would be for the children at the hospital, and how we would make a good impact on their lives.
I think it made us really close because we were helping each other out, and we had fun together, and we were helping people together.
I'm extremely proud. I absolutely, love teaching family and consumer sciences and seeing these children learn life skills that they are going to use again in their future. They might not all have a sewing machine at home, but they're going to use time management and attention to detail. I think this is an experience that they'll remember forever. So they can tell, their own children about someday. And hopefully, it's opened their eyes to the opportunity of being able to give back to others throughout their lives.
It was definitely a really fun, working project to do because we get to make cards, and knowing that we're helping them out definitely brings me a little bit of joy just to know that putting a smile on their face, and they get to have a part of us that we're gifting to them.
Awesome.
And I just want to have Andrea and Kristen stand so we can recognize them for this beautiful project and all their students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That is awesome. So much great community service going on. Thank you very much. Finally, tonight we are recognizing one of the most accomplished student athletes in Williamsville North history. A year ago, you may remember, we recognized him for winning the wrestling's program first state title. Tonight, Cam Caxerbone returns as a 2-time state champion, fresh off of winning the 152-pound championship. He is also the first wrestler in Western New York history to win 6 consecutive Section 6 titles.
Wow.
Right?
That's amazing.
It is. Welcome two-time state champ Cam Catcherbone, his coaches Joe Muscarella and Jeff Catcherbone, and Williamsville North principal Bob Caniglio. So Cam, you got to tell us how'd you do it, right? There's so many young students who are watching, and like, you know, to be 6 consecutive Section 6 titles, to be the winningest student in North history, how'd you do it?
Since I was young, I set high expectations for myself because I was kind of born into the sport of wrestling, which I mean, I feel like a lot of people, when they're born into a sport, they kind of they do the sport for fun, which for me, wrestling was fun. But unless you wrestle or you have been around the sport of wrestling, you don't really understand that like it's not the most fun sport, but the fun in wrestling is actually winning and the success that comes along with it. So I feel like the one thing that has separated me from other athletes is that from other wrestlers, I mean, is that I found fun in wrestling through the process before winning and before everything else. And when you're having fun with the hard work and the miserable training, that's what leads to the success and all
absolutely,
you know, the accomplishments and all the good stuff.
And like a true champion. Thank you very much, Cam, and thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah,
we appreciate
you guys inviting me.
Principal Caniglio.
I think Cam is actually pretty humble. Two things I want to say about Cam are, one, he realizes that wrestling is an extension of education, and he's learned resiliency through that. I mean, he's technically open enrolled from East, which I love. So I love that I get him in my school. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
And he stayed. But one thing I noticed is I heard about him as a freshman and his wrestling family. I knew his father through college. But when he was a sophomore, he was concussed in the semifinal. And I truly believe that he would have won his first state championship then.
Wow.
But that would have been a big setback for most kids. But Cam came back and won it twice in a row.
Awesome.
And then finally, just seeing him mentor the younger wrestlers. I see him talking to them all the time, not just about wrestling, but about school and how academics is important. I see him all the times in the hallway talking to all the kids. He really represents North and his family really well.
Awesome. Coach, do you want to say anything?
Yes. Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for having us. It's an unbelievable moment to stand up here and talk about Cam Catcherbone. I've known him since he was born. I know his parents, Principal Caniglio, and everybody. He is very humble, but he's very, very good, and he takes very good care of he's been a captain of the wrestling team for the past 5 years. He does everything that we ask of him. A 6-time Section 6 champion has never happened before.
Right.
And the best thing is he's going to go represent Williamsville at the University of Michigan in the fall. We would just like to say thank you for your support, the Board of Education, for supporting wrestling. Wrestling's not, like Cameron said, it's not people don't understand the sport so much, but it really builds character in people. And with your support and with wrestlers like him and our student athletes, they have a chance to express themselves and learn many different things. So thank you for having us, and congratulations to Cameron.
Awesome. Thank you very much. But we're doing a photo this way for the photo real quick, if you don't mind. I turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Are there any other board acknowledgements? Mr. Gullen.
Yeah, I actually have a couple. The first one was the Unified Bowling had their senior night the other night, and there were 60 participants in that. I don't know if we know that. And that was put on by the Unified Booster Club, which is only about a year old and it's taking off. And that's just a wonderful event. And then there was also this Williamsville North Senior basketball banquet, which was a lovely event. And it's also Coach Swirsky is retiring, as I think we know, with 270 wins.
Yeah.
We'll stick around to coach Unified and
Awesome.
finish the school year clearly. But I just wanted to, those were two really lovely events. And to prove that I'm well-rounded, I just want to point out that the Williamsville North musical is this weekend.
Legally Blonde.
Blonde, and that's going to break a leg to all the participants.
Absolutely.
Any other acknowledgements?
I'd like to just offer to that same note, literally. I attended the Williamsville East musical this past weekend, and it was absolutely phenomenal. The work that the musicians, the singers, the performers, the stage crew, everybody put in. I'm just continuously impressed, and I can't wait for this weekend's musical at North. So kudos to that group. And I want to offer too, I know we just highlighted the Herd, just another congratulations, not only to the students in that organization, but to the very familiar faces of those teachers who advise, who are also parents in the district, who are on PTSAs, who are at other meetings that I attend. The hard work has not gone unnoticed, and they're just so passionate about what they do. It's just so impressive.
Absolutely. And Williamsville East did Mamma Mia.
Yeah.
Yes, they did Mamma Mia.
Yep. I've been to that show too, and I agree. It's really good.
It was.
You want to sing some?
And next item is public expression. I don't think we have anybody signed up for it. Okay. Moving on to item 4B and 4C, student achievement outcomes and district website update. Presentations, Dr. Brownhall.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, President Singh. So I am going to turn it over to our Chief Academic Officer, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Assessment and Instruction, Dr. Marie Balin, who will be presenting our student achievement outcomes. And after that, we will have our Executive Director of Communications present our district website update. So Dr. Balin is on first.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Brown. Good evening, and thank you to the Board of Education. Thank you, Mr. Filipowski. I think if someone could assist me in forwarding the slides, I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you to everyone. So many wonderful accolades and accomplishments of our students. I'd be remiss if I did not also acknowledge that and to echo some of Dr. Spicer's comments. I want to first of all thank the board. Obviously the support of our programs, but also our staff and students, and in particular our teachers and our administrative staff at the buildings and here at district office. A lot of what we're presenting this evening is summative in nature, but as I mentioned to several of the board members and in thinking about tonight's comments for the presentation, there's certainly a context behind this. And what I want to emphasize is it's much more than about numbers. I think anytime we're looking at students, our every action is to better their experience. So certainly outcomes are a huge part of our work and what we do. But every action we take is to make what we do for students stronger. So I really want to emphasize that too, because I think everything we speak to, whether it is academic, whether it's wellness or any program aspect, every single action we take is with great thought, with great consideration, and always with students at the center. So hopefully some of what is put into place this evening as far as the comments are concerned, not only share some of the outcomes, but what we're doing to ensure that this is a continuous journey. All of you are aware, and I think it's a philosophy that we all share, is everything we do is for continuous improvement of our own efforts, making sure we're bringing our best every day, because when we're at our best, the students are also benefiting greatly. So just wanted to preface my presentation by saying all of those things, and you'll hear a lot of that as it unfolds during the presentation. But certainly, there are a lot of numerics involved in the presentation. Before we get into those, I do want to share with all of you, as you are aware, and certainly with our public and anyone who would have the ability to view the presentation, much of what is shared here is also publicly available. The New York State Education Data Site is a tremendous resource. It is very dense with information, so there is a lot of information there. Whatever we can do, if anyone ever has any questions, if you're a parent in particular, community member, anything regarding our programs or with regard to their own children, please reach out to your school building. Your teachers are a tremendous resource. Your building principals, assistant principals, our district staff here. There's never someone too far away. People are very close, very happy to answer any questions. And if it's something in particular to someone's child, please don't wait to ask. We want to make sure that if anything is gained from what we're sharing here tonight is a very individualized, personalized approach. It is about every single student. So when we're talking about numbers and we see, a collective in some way, shape, or form, what we're really talking about is behind all those numbers are faces, behind all those numbers are students. So please, by all means, we are all here at your disposal. We're here as partners, so please ask us anything we could do beyond what we're already doing. We want to be here to support your children. So to start off, I want to make sure that we share, Nick, if you can go ahead and forward the slide, a couple of guiding principles for assessment. Because in Williamsville, and certainly best practice in education is such that assessment is a system, it's ongoing. And really the beauty of it is that we are continually looking at not only what we have, what the current status is, whether it's individually or collectively, but what more we can do. This is really just scratching the surface. A lot of what we include in this presentation is really state level information, which is very valuable. But please remember, and I'm sure you all know, but our community should know too, everything we do, whether it's testing, whether it's observation, whether it's the student work, the projects that you've had the benefit of hearing about, everything tells us something about what we're currently doing and what more we can look to, whether it's in the near future or something we have to plan for in the longer term. That is how we set our budgets. That's how we set our priorities. We're always looking to see what more we can do. So from an assessment perspective, there is a lot under that umbrella. We have a lot of purposes for assessment. We have a lot of types of assessment. So while we will not go through each one individually, you'll notice that several of the slides that we put into the presentation, we did deliberately. It actually goes through the terminology that we often use that's really more education oriented, but so that we are all on the same page and our community knows what we're using. We want to be very transparent with the types of assessments that we are looking at, what we use, and how we use them. So really the important part of that is what are we doing with the information? It's simply not enough to have the information, but how are we using it to benefit students? So again, I will talk in more general terms, but behind that again is what we're doing for each and every student, which is not only personalized, but to a very large extent differentiated. So I don't want to shortchange that part because while we talk globally about our efforts, again, they're very much on a granular level when it comes to students. So for us, the definition that we have is a prioritized approach to not only data, but data analysis. I will tell you, and I can say this with great confidence after being here in this role and the great pleasure I've had in this district to work hand in hand with our building principals. And I know really nearly all of the teachers personally at this time after being here for 13 years. They do a tremendous amount of reflection at the building oriented around students and student learning. While we may hear about a lot of the things, again, more globally, their actions, their reflections, what they're doing in teams, what they're doing in partnership with our district colleagues, there is always a thought about what do we have here now, meaning the current status. A lot of it does go back to the numerics, but whether they're looking at FastBridge, which all of you know we use for RTI purposes, all of those measures in our AIS plan that you reviewed last month and 2 months ago and approved that on behalf of our district. Again, no one item stands alone. They are always looking at what they see in the classroom. How are students responding to the instruction? There's so much under that umbrella. I hope that I will do it justice by touching on some of these efforts this evening, but I want to ensure that when we're looking at this information, and certainly from a community perspective, we really give that lens a broad view, because everything that we do, each and every moment we interact with kids, whether it's in a more formal way through an assessment or informally in the classroom, in the hallway, we're always gaining something. So again, it's on us as professionals, as educators, to use that to the benefit of kids. So I really can tell you, we visit classrooms. Dr. Brownhall and I go monthly I also go individually. I know the board has visits. I hope that you have the great opportunities to see the things in action, because that is really what, when you hear the kids speak to it and you see it and the teachers are engaged, you really see it alive and well. But for purposes here, this methodology is really more of a multifaceted approach. So again, while we will talk about 3 through 8 assessments, or we'll talk about Regents exams, again, all very important, they are one measure. So what are they all? When you look through the slides, you'll see a lot of different types of assessments used. Some are more formal, like the ones we just mentioned, and some are more informal. So again, if any parent ever wants to know more about, how does this impact my child? What are some of the things that my child experiences? There are many ways to get that information. First and foremost, we put a lot of it on WITS, things that have numbers behind them. Certainly our universal screening information is there, but again, the conversation doesn't replace what you can find on a computer. So I would just really, again, please ask anyone who needs more information to go right directly to the source at the building. So we will keep moving along here. So besides that, again, just the next several slides just really talk about more of our information gathering. I spoke about the formal and the informal. You'll notice, again, for us, we're really looking at systems and structures. So that's really a large part of what I would offer is the backbone of this presentation, is the things that we fall back to are predictable routines around data, around analysis, also recognizing that we never take the individual out of the picture and out of the equation. But the cycle that you see on the screen is really the one that we have committed to, the one that we believe in, and the one that we recognize has been the most valuable for us as we are internalizing what this data mean and how we can improve upon our practices and what we are doing. So the things that I'm speaking to are not only, really talking points, but they're expected to happen. They do happen. And the way that we know they're happening is when we're asking questions at the building, or principals are offering information to us, or asking teachers to contribute reflections about their practices, we are falling back to some of these structures, not only for their own individual benefit in their classrooms, but as a team. There's so much to be gained when professionals are talking with one another and sharing best practices. What are you doing that's working in your classroom? What are some of the things, some of the ways that you taught this math concept? What are some of the ways that you engage students in the reading? How did you embed student voice in what you were doing in your classroom? Those are all of the things that are not just events, they're routines. So when we talk about these things, we expect them to happen, we want them to happen, and we celebrate when they happen, because these are things we want to be common practices, not just best practices. So I know it was shared with all of you. Our community may not know, just this past Friday on March 8th, we had a really superb, engaging day of professional learning for our instructional staff. I thank our directors and our administrators in putting this out. Many of the presenters were also teachers. We had experts in various fields. It was a great partnership with Mr. Scanzuzzo's office, but we had 145 sessions. So the reason I bring that up is because we are always looking to do better. No matter what we're doing, there's always more we know we can do. And we're always looking to share, because there's nothing more isolating than feeling like you are by yourself or having to reinvent things. There are great practices that people were sharing. I can tell you, having visited all 3 sites where we had our learning, people were raving about what they learned, what they were doing, and celebrating kids. So that's what we really want to continue. So when we have these meetings, when we talk about the data collection, some of that, what we don't want it to be is very sterile, very impersonal. It's what change can we make based on what we're seeing. So we do that on a district level. So the first level of analysis always takes place here. Our directors and I, Dr. Brownhall, Mr. Scanzuzzo, were very involved in looking at what do we see? What is it telling us? How do our actions, our present status, our programs align with what we achieved, what we were hoping to achieve, and where might any gaps lie? Where do we still have work to do? These are constant things. It is not every June we talk about it, or every 3 months. It's honestly a daily occurrence. So whether it's a standardized assessment or it's something more informal, we're already internalizing what change we can make based on what we heard. We were just at a conference today. I will tell you, it's still churning. It's still going through, like, how can we take what we learned and make sure that our experiences for students are better? But I would invite you, if you've not had a chance, perhaps even during your visits. I know these take place on a really regular basis, but just lean into conversations people are having, whether they're doing a formal data analysis or meeting as a team. You will hear a lot of this conversation happening, and it happens regularly. So we'll keep going here, but the next 4 slides we will not go through. These are the ones that I mentioned were more reference oriented. So I would just invite our community to look through them. These are very dense. It's not meant to be memorized. That's why the slides are here. But this is really the heart of a lot of the assessments that we have in place and the purposes they serve. And as you can see, each and every one gives us valuable information on what students know, understand, and should be able to do. So we'll kind of go past all of those. But going first level of analysis, as I mentioned, New York State assessments. These have had great change over the last several years. All of you are aware, certainly COVID had a tremendous impact, but as a system and as a state, our state is very much also being very reflective about the types of learning and how we're assessing student understanding. Many of you have heard this over the years. There's been great change in the assessments themselves. One of the largest changes coming to pass we'll actually see this year in the district is the implementation of computer-based assessments. I did include a slide. Again, I won't go through every point, but this is something we are administering in grades 5 through 8. So that is something that will happen this year. That is according to our state's timeline. We had to have 2 middle school grades implement. We're having all 4. We had very deliberate conversation about that implementation. And after that is completed, we are also going to transition our elementary students. We still have yet to determine if it's going to be both grades 3 and 4, but that's certainly on our conversation list to have. We want to implement the test and see how the actual operational test goes this spring. All of our K through 12 principals have been kept abreast of all of what has been transpiring at the middle level. So they're very knowledgeable about the topic, but it's been a tremendous undertaking by our district staff, our building staff, and certainly our building personnel. We had a very successful implementation of our simulation that all of you in our community were made aware of. But this is something we don't want our students or staff to fear. We don't want our community to fear. It is a different type of testing because you're not just testing the content, you're testing proficiency with technology. So it has other different components to it. But we try to reflect on the screen some of what the state has directly shared with us. While it's not exclusive to computer-based testing, it's really important to keep in mind that when we look at results, they really are for informational purposes. They are not intended to be comparative in nature. We don't want to minimize their importance, though. As I mentioned earlier, they're part of a larger assessment picture. So really the greatest benefit we have are looking at trends, are looking at, again, any item analysis that we have at our disposal, but really drilling right down to not just that grade level, but that individual student. By time we've received the results, and this year they came, they come in the fall typically. By time they're released, they're late fall. And I know with computer-based testing, the effort is to turn them around a bit earlier, so results come a little bit quicker for districts, but they still are quite a bit in arrears. So by that point, students have moved on to their next grade level. So we do also have to acknowledge that they're not just in time, they're not immediate. So what we have to do is kind of look in the rearview mirror and take what we can from those assessments, coupled with the current assessments, the just-in-time assessments, the more informal assessments, any computer based assessments hopefully will come quicker, but there's still a little bit of time that passes between the time they're administered and the time that we get the results. But we always, as a practice, have shared with our community, and again, these are all public, all of our performance as it relates to these assessments. I would also remind everyone that while this goes into results, we also list participation because we recognize and honor that families ultimately do have the ability to determine, parents and guardians can determine for their children whether or not they are going to engage with the 3 through 8 assessments, and that is only for the 3 through 8 assessment. So it's 3 through 8 ELA and math, and 5, and now it's grades 5 and 8 science. That is not the case with other assessments. So when we talk about the Regents exams and AP exams, that is not the case. So AP is more of a choice because the kids take the class and then the assessment, but with Regents, there is not a choice at this time. Although I will say, and all of you know this, the state's philosophy is also changing, I would say, quite dramatically in that We've seen different pathways certainly come to pass. There's more of a conversation about that, but there's also a lot of conversation happening about the best way for students to demonstrate their understanding. So I do think we're going to see and have already seen tremendous progress in advancing those conversations, that assessments will not be the only way that students will be able to do that. But for now, this is where we are. But on the screen, we've shown our participation rates. There was a lot of conversation many years ago when this first really was building steam about, whether districts will be adversely impacted by that and, what that will look like, whether it would be financial. We have not to date had that happen, but the state did change, I would say, dramatically, because at first there were no, as they call them, opt-outs or refusals, but it is an acknowledged piece now that families do have a choice. We put out our information through WITS. We've shared it in newsletters, but ultimately it is the family's choice. We do try to share what the benefits of taking the assessment are, but I would also say, and you saw this in our AIS plan, and this is according to also the state's guidance, is we cannot punish or adversely impact a student's programming or any steps we would take to support the student by having the absence of an assessment. So these are just numbers. These are, people deciding for their own children whether or not they are going to engage. So as you can see, that's what those say. We also do report on the assessment levels. As all of you know, right now it's still a levels 1 through 4 system. Again, this is based on the test takers for those particular grades. I will tell you, and it's always an asterisk at the end, the 8th grade numbers always look like they don't align with the others. They look a lot lower, and then, we often get questions about what that means or why that's the case. Remember, at 8th grade, our students have the opportunity to take advanced classes. So when you take earth science and when you're taking advanced math, you do not take the 8th grade assessments. They're not double tested. So anywhere from a third to a half of our students are taking the advanced classes. And that is either through teacher recommendation or student or parent electing for the students to do that. So again, those are all there. This is all publicly available. Anyone can go on the data site that I mentioned earlier and actually get the results and drill down by grade level. You can see subgroups, and we'll share some of the information there. It's very important to also recognize, and this is true anytime you are looking at grade levels or subgroups, is the numbers are not all consistent. Our numbers from last year as far as test takers are not the same as this year. However many students are in a subgroup, I will tell you they range from 0 to single digits to larger. There are great variables. So when we're talking about percentages, they're not all equally represented. So when we say 50% of 10 kids versus 50% of 300 students is drastically different. So we just cannot look at a number and draw an analysis that way. It really does take us drilling down right from that larger picture down. So here you see again by subgroup. Again, I would just encourage anyone who wants to know, well, what do these mean and what significance do they have, is just to recognize that we do publicly make it available. Part of it is to provide the context for the results, but it should not minimize the results, because whether it's one student or 100 students, our efforts are still to make that student's academic experience stronger and overall educational experience stronger. So some of the discourse that we have all had and that I want to make the community aware of is, how do we do that? One is through our professional learning that I just mentioned. A second one is it starts right here at the district office with our directors and our curriculum teams. I will give you a perfect example of some of the things I'm talking about. Just yesterday, I met again with Dr. Hunter. Dr. Hunter has been a great contributor for us and a partner in diversity, equity, and inclusion. He helped tremendously in positioning our thinking and helping us to develop some action plans. So when we do our summer curriculum work that all of you have graciously supported, we are going into it with goals and objectives that help to meet some of the needs that we've identified. Those are not only globally identified, but right down to the specific subject area. So we're already talking about what this summer looks like. Dr. Hunter will be joining myself and our directors here for a number of our staff meetings, just like he did last year. And then he and I meet individually with the directors to, again, plan for the summer curriculum work. So when the teams are planning, they're already starting with a focus in mind. The great thing about the teams is the teams are teachers who are partnered with our directors here at the district office, and they dig into this quite deeply. So again, it is not a generic conversation. It is not a, wasteful conversation. It's a very focused, targeted conversation. So then when staff come back in August, when we do our professional development in the summer, when we're doing our opening day activities, they're very focused on what we can do for students. So we're already hitting the ground running. So I want to make sure that our tremendous commitment to that. That's just starting here at the district office, and then really things fly when they get to the building level. It's really our ongoing support of teachers. Our major function is to remove barriers for our teachers, for our instructional staff, and for our students, and anything we can do to do that is really what we're doing. So again, I mentioned computer-based testing. There's a lot on our website about it. I thank Mr. Filipowski. He's done a great job helping us craft some correspondence to families. Again, if anyone has any questions relative to their own students' experience, please ask the buildings. I feel like we are ready for it. So I think there was a question at one of the prior meetings. I feel like there's been great preparation. We've had several meetings where our entire body of team has come together, IT, our technology team, our directors, Mr. Scanzuzzo's office and his directors, principals, assistant principals. I mean, it has been a tremendous undertaking. Teachers have been critical. We did a wonderful job as buildings implementing the simulation. I'm very confident, given even the students' comments, that we're going to be ready to go. So we'll let you know how everything goes once we return from our spring break. There's really not much time before testing starts. So as you know, we're coming back the 9th because we are off on the 8th, that Monday. That following week, we're already looking at testing, and it's really just kind of a steady stream from that point forward. We have then the math in May, and then we'll have some science testing. So again, we will certainly let you know what our experience will look like, but we will do everything we can to make sure our teachers are prepared, our schools are prepared, and most of all, our students feel comfortable and ready to go with the assessments. Regents exam appeals, you've heard about this before, but just for the community's knowledge too, there were 5 cycles of appeals that our students were able to take advantage of, much due to the COVID, components. Our last one was in August. Again, when we looked at the numbers, they ranged. You had to have had a passing course average, and then testing averages between certain numbers, 50 and 64. Dr. Ron Hall was a tremendous partner in this. We were reviewing pretty much a kind of a steady stream of applications. Anyone who met the criteria the state put out, we really approved all of them. There was no reason not to. So, those did sunset in August. So we are back to, kind of regular operations here. But just in case anyone were to ask you, or our community was wondering, there were 5 cycles that were impacted, with the last one being in August. On the next set of slides, and again, I won't go through every single piece with you or with our community. It's all here and on the slides for you, but we did note all of our performance as it relates to all of our Regents exams. So all of that again is there. I will tell you, and this is true of the 3 through 8, even though we tend not to, and it's a dangerous sort of slippery slide to make comparisons. And all of you know this. Even when schools were ranked, we were oftentimes at the top, but that is not, I don't like to really kind of put that out there, because it seems like, well, then we're done. We're not. It's never finished. It's a continuous cycle. We do enjoy great success. Our students do a tremendous job. The teachers and principals and our district staff, I give accolades, because certainly that's all earned, but we are continuing. It is always about what we can do better. So again, while the numbers seem, like they're strong, we're on good footing, and we certainly are. It certainly is always about how we can do more. So what does that look like? We have curriculum work in all of these areas. You helped support the proposals that were brought to you as part of our curriculum council review. So that's certainly a part of it. It's ongoing professional development with teachers, and really it's hearing from kids. What's been their experience? What do you need help with? What seems clear? What other supports do you need? So you all recall that long list of supports. We talk about our learning labs. We talk about our AIS plan. We talk about, really a whole host of things we do for and with students. That's all in service to supporting their academics, but also their overall experience in these courses also.
And we can refer everyone to the speaker series,
Yes.
What to Do When Your Child is Struggling in School. So that is also available on the website, because that was recorded.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and that's a key question because that's a tough one because oftentimes, and you get to that level of angst as a student, and we always say to parents too, if you notice something, even if it doesn't seem significant, please ask because we wouldn't want the struggle. You don't want to sit with struggle, whether it's a smaller struggle or something that's more profound. Please share it with someone because again, there's always something that can help that person, that student, that individual move forward. Sometimes it's just a quick check. That's what the learning labs are for. You're in, it might be a particular concept. Maybe it's a homework assignment. Maybe it's something, you're like, I'm really grappling with this. I don't understand, or I just need my understanding checked a little. We have things like that. There are things that are more sustained. If it's a little more sustained, we have AIS. We have support structures through RTI at the elementary school. I mean, the list, we have it on our website. It's significant. There's something at every level. There's something at every grade level. There's something course, at the course level. There's a lot. So that could be overwhelming too, because what we don't want is someone to say like, I want this service. We know what the services are. If someone tells us what the concern is, we're hoping to match the resource to the need. So we don't want people to feel like they have to name it. Sometimes and sometimes you may not realize what all of these, components are. But once they tell us, it's our job really to match the resource with the need. So we can do that. Certainly, we speak about the passing and mastery rates. Those, again, are up on the screen. Generally speaking, from a reporting standpoint, again, this is something that's important for all of you to know in our community. We're in good standing with all of our courses, our subgroups, all of the metrics that the state gives us. We are on solid footing. Again, it doesn't mean complacency or that we're settling. It just means that we're in a good place right now, always looking to do better. Graduation rates and some of the information you'll notice we did mark as TBD or that we don't yet have. Again, as soon as we get it, just like we did last year and in past years, we will go ahead and update the presentation. Some of the information is just not yet available. Oftentimes, and this is not the case right at the moment, but sometimes we will get information that has to be embargoed and can't be shared publicly. Right now, we just don't have this. So,
and as soon as we do have it, as soon as we do have it, we will let you know at the board table and we will update the presentation. It will be in my community update.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then again, you'll notice again, we kind of put some TBTE holding points in places for that. And same thing on this slide. We continue to have some really strong interest and course enrollments in our AP courses. So again, we do share that information with you. I do want to make sure our parents and our community know, and I would actually link this to some of this slide too on our dual enrollment and advanced opportunities. If you go on our district website and look at Williamsville East, Williamsville North, and Williamsville South, each one of them posts by design our course catalogs. It has every single offering in our district in each one of those 3 publications. There's a tremendous amount of effort that goes in to make sure that everything hopefully parents and students need. What are our courses? What are the graduation requirements? But why I mention it here is you'll notice that there are symbols next to some of the courses. Those designate if there is a partnership that we currently have with an institution of higher learning, it's in the catalog. I will tell you, we're always adding in that respect. I'm very pleased to say that over the course of the last many years, we've had great partnerships with our colleges and universities, and we want to continue that. It is a wonderful thing for families. Oftentimes, students are leaving with credit. That's a great thing, or it's an interest area they've had, so they've gotten a chance to really delve into some of the topical content area a little bit more deeply. But, when it comes to tuitions and things of that nature, a lot of opportunity also lies in the fact that oftentimes either students are bringing credit with them into secondary institutions or they're at a very reduced rate now. So students can actually have that ability to purchase that now at a very reduced rate, which is also helpful to the families. But I'm in talks right now. Can't share all the details at the moment, but I'm hoping to add 5 more courses that we don't really currently have partnerships with that I've been approached by a local college to say, could we partner? So we're in the process of looking at that. So once that comes to fruition, hopefully soon I will be able to bring more of that information to you. But at last count, we had over 60 opportunities, and that's a lot, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, hopefully every year. So with that, I will conclude the presentation. And again, just thank you all for your support. But please know we're at everybody's disposal when it comes to providing information or support. We are here. We look forward to more updates, more accolades, and more efforts on behalf of students. So if there's anything I can do or provide to you, please don't hesitate to let me know. So if there are any questions, I will.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bell, and we appreciate that. Very thorough, very detailed, a lot of information there. So thank you very much. Are there any questions board members may have for Dr. Bell? Go ahead, Vice President.
This isn't directly related to your presentation, but I was just curious about an update in terms of the seals that we were looking.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And I will tell you, both seals, the seal of biliteracy and the seal of civic readiness, are ones that we've had significant conversation about. And we are actually, the directors and I, the respective directors for those areas, have engaged in ongoing conversation with Dr. Brownhall. We actually have some information that we will be bringing to our teachers and the WTA specifically for advancement of both of those, but we are going to be poised and ready to implement them fully. So we are excited.
Thank you so much for the update.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. Lippman?
First of all, Dr. Balin, I thank you for the many years of seeing your presentations. They're always thoughtful, well presented, and provide a great amount of information. And I just, one of the responsibilities we have as a board is resource allocation. So I think about a wish list and, all of the things that, you've talked to students and parents and teachers about what they might need to further enhance our students' success. So, over and above, we have the AIS and we have the learning labs and aids in the classroom. Anything quickly comes to mind that might be beneficial that we could think about?
Thank you, Dr. Lippman. Well, first I want to say, and I thank you for the question, but also to each and every board member, Dr. Brownhall. We are, when I say most fortunate in our district to have the tremendous amount of support and resources we do, that is not an understatement. I appreciate everything we have. When we're looking at sort of more forward thinking and some of the resource allocations you're talking about, what we're really trying to be thoughtful about is, I think the one piece I really see, and this is something that it has to really be by design, is that, and I draw back to some of our DEI goals and objectives, is the student voice. We heard our students mention a lot of endeavors that they're leading. That is something I think, honestly, and I hear this from our teachers too, is we all have an interest in doing it. And I think we have a lot of great examples about how it's currently being done, is really looking for more opportunities to make sure that that's occurring. So I think one of our focus areas will certainly be to look towards anything that would allow us more time, effort, and energy being dedicated really to looking at student leadership and how we're supporting that. So I know there was something that Dr. Brownhall and I talked about that, again, I'm hopeful to share with you soon, is that we are looking for opportunities for students to not only lead those endeavors, but to share with peers, to share with adults, so that we're actually hearing their voice. And that comes a lot also in their learning. Anything we can do to promote that student voice and choice is going to be really at the forefront. And really a lot of that's going to come based on conversations that we're going to be planning to have kids at the center. So I think I'll reserve the right, hopefully, to come back to you with some more granular information, but we're really looking to students to really propel that information forward for us.
Board Member Bueller?
I have two questions. One may be really in the weeds. I saw on one of the slides that it was listed subcategories, and one was students with disabilities. How do we I'm just curious how you define that.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because actually there is and we can actually list this and put it up on our website. The state defines it. So each one of those categories, there's actually 53 pages of, definitions, subcategorizations, metrics, weightings. It's actually quite complicated. So I would say it's probably best that I put the guide up, because with each one of those, even as far as the leveling system and the categorical aspects, each one is very unique. I would also say to you, the way it's defined in one report is not necessarily the same it's defined in another. So it's always helpful to be somewhat in context of what we're looking at. So what I'll do is I'll post it, because for this purpose, it's actually calculated very specifically in who it is. But it's also important to note who it's not, because anyone who has a program other than, so for example, our students who are in our NISA program, so it does exclude some students. So I will post the document, because each and every metric is tied back to how it's calculated, and each one is calculated differently.
And my second question is looking forward. Do you think there's going to be a renorming of conversion charts coming out of COVID, where they, let's be frank, were pretty favorable toward kids getting mastery level and passing? Do you think there's going to be a renorming? And if there is, how will it affect these numbers, if at all, do you think?
I think it's a yes and a yes. So there's already been a lot of renorming even before COVID, because every time we essentially have the presentation, it always draws back to what is the context. The charts are different, the items are different, the conditions are different, the variables are ever changing. And I think, and because of COVID, the whole system could not be maintained. I mean, so frankly, when you're looking at reporting, it's really just taking us even this long. And even from a state perspective, we're not going to be on the same footing we were before, because the system was disrupted. So it is not the same system. The benefits of that is it's not the same system. So all those, the opportunities we talked about, the different ways of looking at progress and achievement, that it's not just a singular item, that it's not just one moment in time. I think those are some of the benefits that are coming out of this.
Absolutely.
Everything has been having to be rebuilt. So it's really going to be everything you just said. So I think it's helping to redefine what these things look like. So I would look forward to more conversations about that. Great question.
All right.
And I have
Okay.
just one last question or comment. Can this this metric and any other metric be combined to create a baseline to see how our DI programs are doing in our district?
That is also another outstanding question, because there is no one metric. So the difficult part of it is when you take all of this in its entirety, it can be also overwhelming, because there's so many different types of information. So really it's up to us as the practitioners of utilizing the information to be able to take the best of all of what we have in front of us and then make those conscious decisions about how to move forward. At this point, what we can do is do what we've done, is share the information, put a context to it, and also keep those conversations moving forward about what programs we're offering, how we're making our decisions, and what more we have to do. But the hard part remains is that there is no one exact picture, because the variables are so different. They're ever changing, they're moving. So it really is an ongoing discussion, which is really something that I think it's something that all of us have to really promote and share with our communities. There really isn't one way to define it, because there are so many ways and so many things that students do on a regular basis. And for us, it's how do we internalize all of that and make our decisions. So really, it's hard to point to one item. And I think back to Mr. Buelen's point, this is where the state is really going to have to help support us as districts, as educators, in helping to say, what does the full picture look like? Because I will tell you, and I think all of you understand this, is the system is not what it was. It won't be the same system we all knew or understood. It's changing, and a lot of it will not be numeric. A lot of it will be performance-based. A lot of it will be anecdotal. A lot of it will be observational. A lot of it will be outcomes that are not traditional or stagnant or static, for that matter. So all we can do is continue to speak to these things and inform ourselves and our public about what we have at our disposal, and what, really be very transparent about what we're doing. So that is our approach.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bell. And we are going to move on to Nick Filipowski's presentation on the district website update.
I like to fade in the background. I got to walk all the way to the front of the boardroom, but for a good reason tonight. I am very excited to be able to provide this update to the Board of Education and to our community. And this has really been a project, 18 months in the making. We started our website redesign really in the summer of 22, after we established the district-wide communications committee, and then ultimately the district-wide website subcommittee. We started by reviewing websites locally, regionally, and nationally to get a look at what we wanted, what we didn't wanted, functionality, tools that might be available, navigation that might better suit our stakeholders here in Williamsville. We also established non-negotiables. We ultimately signed a contract with Finalsite in October of 2023. We got the thumbs up to start building in November of 2023, and that's really what we've been doing night and day. A lot of long weeks, long nights, long weekends. But I'm proud of the work that our team has done in the communications office, what our communications committee has done as a whole, and to get to where we are right now has been no easy feat. We did extensive reviews starting in December, January, February, and again this month. I'm meeting with the K-12 principals tomorrow during our regularly scheduled meeting to go over once again any information and updates and edits that we need to make prior to our launch over the spring recess, which is when we are targeting. April 2nd and 3rd is when we're hoping to flip the switch, so to speak, and go from the current site to the new site. It takes a lot of coordination on the back end. We have a phenomenal IT team here in the district. We're also working closely with BOCES, who is hosting our domains, and also with our vendor Finalsite. The most important thing I want everybody to remember as we go through this process, and it's really high priority. We talk about this often, myself and Mr. Morales, who works in our communications office. The website is a working document. It has to be constantly maintained and reviewed, edited and updated regularly. It's not a set it and forget it by any stretch of the imagination. If we set it and forget it, we're really doing a disservice to our community and our stakeholders who go to our website to find information as easily as possible. So how do you kind of do that for the most part? We need feedback. We need constant feedback. So once we launch in April, we'll welcome stakeholders to send us emails and provide that feedback. That way we can continue to make tweaks and edits leading into the summer, throughout the summer, and then really have a strong presence, a continued strong presence when school begins in September of 2024. We'll also be using Google Analytics to track habits. If there's updates and edits we need to make in terms of navigation and functionality, we'll have those analytics at our fingertips to make those necessary items or necessary edits as we go along. As it relates to the district domain, the good news is the website address is not changing. It will be williamsvillek12.org. The only change comes with our school websites. How it's currently structured, our school websites are subdomains. They will now be their own separate domain. So they will not live on the same server. They'll have their own IP addresses, own DNS server, all those things. And I'll go through those. I'm not going to read every single web address to you. I think everybody would fall asleep. But the gist of it is that it'll be schoolname.williamsvillek12.org. So here's a look at the elementary schools. Our middle schools. I do want to note Heim Elementary and Heim Middle will be heimelementary.williamsvillek12.org or heimmiddle.williamsville.k12.org. That avoids any confusion. And then our high schools as well. So the big question is, what were we ultimately looking for in a new website? I'm not a doctor, but it needed a facelift, and a pretty serious one. And we went with a very modern design. As you can see in the screenshot, I know I'm not bringing it up live for you right now, but our ultimate goal in having a modern design was to also streamline and consolidate the information that our stakeholders were looking for. If they can't find it in 2 to 3 clicks, we're not doing our jobs. And I know there's exceptions to the rules, and there are some things we have to click to get information, but that was really our guiding principle from the very, very beginning, was make sure information is easy to find, easy to navigate to, and is there with clarity. That way folks can find it as easily as possible. Again, how do you do that? Well, functionality across the board for us is paramount, whether anybody's on a desktop, a laptop, tablet, any type of mobile device. There are nuances with websites and the platform that you're looking at them on, but we also wanted to make sure that when they are accessing, the user experience is not vastly different, which it currently is. If you look at the current website on a desktop, it looks very different than it does on a cell phone. The nice thing is throughout the process of building the new district website, on the back end, we're able to look at the website on different screens and different modalities. So it was built on a desktop ultimately, but throughout the process, we've been able to say, hey, what does this look like functionally and navigation wise on a cell phone? What does it look like on a tablet? And we've been able, that's been a very good resource for us to use. And I think one of the most important things to remember too is you want to be where your people are. I think the majority of our stakeholders would probably first thing in the morning, what do you grab? Your cell phone, right? And if there's an update or information on the district website, we had that top of mind as well, knowing that they would be navigating there, whether it's a weather closing, an alert or whatnot, that they would be going to the district website to find that information right from their phone. Accessibility is also a big thing. The nice thing about Final Site on the back end, it has an ADA checker built into it. So as we were building our pages, we wanted to move away from PDFs. We do have PDFs on our page throughout our website, but we wanted to make sure that we were meeting the needs of all our stakeholders, not just some, but all. And that's really one of the most important things we were able to do. And that was one of the very first things that we established with Final Site was we need to make sure across the board we're ADA accessible for all of our stakeholders. We also wanted to make sure that Google Translate was integrated. So at the top of every web page, you'll see you have a social media links, but right next to that in the text box is a link to Google Translate. So 130 plus languages at anybody's fingertips to translate the website, which is very good. Throughout the process too, we met regularly with our team in the district office, our instructional directors of special education, also our building principals and administrators. We met with their communications teams as well. And the feedback that we got, even in the communications committee meetings, we needed quick links customized across all the levels so that if there were high priority items, individuals could access them fairly easily. So across all levels, regardless of whether it's an elementary school, middle school, or high school, everybody at the top of the page will have their calendar, their newsletter, e-alert opportunities to either sign up or review the process for e-alerts, and then a direct link to WITS as well. At the elementary, middle, and high school level, things get a little differentiated to a certain extent. And the elementary level, 3 additional hot links, and the middle school are the same: directory information, the menu, and then registration as well. And that was direct feedback. We asked them, what are the high priority items that you routinely get questions about from your parents, from your community members who reach out to you? And these were the top 3 items that typically came up. At the high school level, it differentiates a little bit. And this is direct feedback we got from our students as well. We know students don't regularly go to the district website, but when they do, they told us in our communications committee meeting that it was athletics and music in the course catalog that they were often searching for. So student voice, we always want to elevate that. And that was a key component of establishing or building the high school pages. Awesome. One of the cool things we're able to do with the new district website as well is integrate calendars. So at the district level, obviously, as many of you know, we get questions about when's the next board meeting. So similar to what's in the printed calendar, we're able to integrate that digitally on the back end through Google and Final Site. So we'll have a calendar that folks can go to, search for board meetings, PTSA council meetings, SEPSA meetings, breaks, marking periods, etc. The same functionality will also be available to our schools. And it's school level events, and it's very surface level. As many of you know, we did go through an extensive process in reimagining our printed calendar for safety and security concerns. So you see at the very bottom of the screen, please continue to refer to the WITS event calendar. For intimate details of the inner workings of the school, whether that's a field trip, guest speakers, assemblies, those items will still remain behind the secure portal on WITS. What will it ultimately look like? You see it right here. So on the left hand of the screen, it's a summary of events. 5 will populate automatically. You can load more to look at more. You can also, on the calendar overview, select a specific day, and it will populate the events. On the left side, you can also do keyword searches or searches for specific meetings. So whether you're on the district level or at the school level, you can search for board meetings, PTSA, PTA meetings, SEPSA meetings, all those things. And they'll be there right there at your fingertips. And that's one of the pieces of feedback we received as well, was a lot of folks go to the district website to find information on when meetings are or when events are taking place. And this is easy, accessible, and a great resource that we hope our stakeholders are able to utilize to know more about what's going on in the district, especially for board meetings. Communication. I am the executive director of communications, and accessibility, transparency are top of priority for us on a daily basis. I know I get calls and emails, and I know our buildings do as well, about, hey, I'm trying to contact a teacher. I can't find their contact information. That will now change. We now have a fully integrated Active Directory where you can search for any staff member, whether they're a custodian, a teacher aide, a teacher, myself, and their information will populate with the building they're in, what they teach. If they're a social studies teacher, it'll give their building location as well, and they'll give their email and their phone extension. So teachers do have extensions. It doesn't ring directly in the classroom because you don't want to interrupt instructional time, but it does have the extensions listed there. And even if you know first name but you don't know last name, you could search it that way. You could also do just a basic building search without searching for a first and last name and get the individuals who are in that specific building. With anything, it's a continuous work in progress, right? There are items that we are still working on the back end. Top of mind is the street directory. In its current form, it does not provide the opportunity to do a specific address search. So if you were to search for, as an example, like 357 Anna Woods, it would not give you an output. You can only search by the street name. So if you search Anna Woods, it'll give you kind of a batch result. As you see, I know it's tiny on the screen, but it says 0 to 9,999. I know there's not 10,000 houses on that street, give or take. But it'll give you a data set range, and then it's incumbent on whoever's looking for that specific street address to know what the address is. And if it falls in that data range, it'll give you the schools of attendance that the house is zoned for. So that's a work in progress. We're continuing to work on the back end with members of Mr. Scanzuso's office, student services and exceptional education. They use that very frequently. We also know anybody coming into the district, they do review it to know what schools they're going to. I do get a lot of calls from real estate agents wondering where houses are zoned for, what schools houses are zoned for. So we know that's top of mind and top priority for members of our community as well. We're also working on an app, a mobile app. I love the functionality of the website in and of itself on a browser, but we are working on the back end with Final Site to have a mobile app that's available to roll out in the summer of 2024. So that's a work in progress as well. So what are our next steps? We're going to continue to work on the website up until we launch, and then we're going to continue to work on it after that. We're not going to set it and forget it. That'd be a bad idea. And we are looking for feedback even before we launch. And what we'd like to do is host a 2-hour test session with stakeholders. We're looking for parents and guardians, students, teachers, main office staff as well, because we know when parents can't find things, one of their first calls is to the school. And we want to make sure that when it comes to functionality and navigation tools, that we're meeting the needs of our stakeholders. This will give us somewhat of a baseline. I know there's thousands of people who live in the district. We're trying to get it down to 40, but any type of feedback we can get is good feedback. We can't shy away from that. And stakeholder input is of the utmost importance. So Thursday, March 21st, from 4 to 6 p.m., we're going to provide several prompts and an opportunity for folks to kind of get a back end look and a preview of the website to go through it, see what works, what doesn't, what tweaks and edits we need to make before we formally launch during the spring recess. If anybody's interested, email contact@williamsvillek12.org. Let me know what stakeholder group you're a part of. I'll put you on the list. And then early next week, we'll follow up with next steps. We're also, with the directory information, we want to make sure even before we launch that information is up to date and ready to go. So the last week before spring break, I'll send an email out to all faculty and staff asking them to just double check the directory information, make sure it's right. There's a lot of coordination that takes place from HR and IT that we'd have to get in order if any changes need to be made. But we've already made some small changes, but that's our goal, is to make sure that that's up to date and ready to roll out. And like I said at the very beginning, very proud of the work that we've done. Michelle McKinstry, who works at Williamsville North High School, is a part of our communications committee. She's the Career Center coordinator at Williamsville North High School. She's been a great resource. She's back in the district after leaving for a short time, but Ms. Caccinetti, can you press number 2 on there? There you go. Thank you. She's been fantastic throughout this process, not only from a staff member perspective, but a parent perspective as well. With that, I'll open it up to questions from the board.
Any questions, board members? Dr. Singh.
I mean, is there any personal information or anything on the website that we should worry about?
No. There's no personal, no. Other than teacher email addresses and extensions or staff member email addresses and phone numbers, there's no personal information.
So the website is pretty secure, I'm guessing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Vice President, go ahead.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. And I know you say the Office of Communications, which is a very small group. So I know that your small group has been working very hard to get this done and on time. So we appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Board Member Biscaglia.
It looks really good from what we've seen today. I just had a question about what caught my eye. I mean, the app.
Yes.
So you really have a goal of this summer completing it, or is it? I just think that's wonderful. I mean, to be one of the first school districts to have an app where basically everyone goes to anyways, rather than using Safari or Google
Yes.
Chrome, that caught my attention. I didn't know that was on the list, and I think that's awesome. I was just curious, and I know you can't just say, "Yeah, I'm going to be done." But, yeah, is that truly a goal? Like that is attainable?
That is the goal. Yes, that is the goal. I mean, there's things we've worked on the back end with Final Site. The goal originally was to have it ready when we roll out, so it goes out in tandem in April. Unfortunately, some things happen on the back end with Final Site that's not able to happen, but it gives us more time and an opportunity to make sure we get it right when it rolls out. And I'm not naive enough to think this is going to be the perfect rollout. We strive for perfection. Perfection is tough to reach and achieve. But we've worked, like I said, many long days, long nights, long weekends to make this as great of a website as we possibly can for our stakeholders. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done with the work of our committee. I know Mr. Manna and Vice President Kaczmarek Wagner are on our communications committee meeting as well. Communications committee. And we've really worked at a breakneck pace to get the information from our buildings and from our directors here at the district office and all of our departments here at the district office to consolidate, streamline, make sure the information that is on the new district website is not just kind of a toss-up. There needs to be purpose for it. It needs to be intentional with everything that we do. And the work we've done, I think, speaks to what the new user experience for the K-12 website will be.
And then just a follow-up question with that mobile app. The idea would be it has everything that the website would have.
Correct.
Like, and then mixed in with the schools, or would just be more of the district website?
It would be a district app.
Right.
We haven't gotten too much into the nuances of what the app will feature, but knowing we have a district website and school websites, I'm sure those will be customizable and able to be integrated.
Any other questions?
Is there any plan to add widgets in the app too?
No. That would not go in.
Not at this time, Dr. Singh.
A quick no. Right.
Hard no.
Absolutely. So, Executive Director Filipowski, thank you and your communications office, as Vice President pointed out, for all the hard work in developing and helping get this website to a place where we feel comfortable launching early April. So thank you very much. And thank you for the phenomenal presentation.
Absolutely. I'm going to put her on the spot real quick. Ms. McKinstry, would you like to add anything? As a staff member and a parent who's worked on our committee, is there anything you'd like to add?
I would just say that
Not to put you on the spot.
part of the joy with the communications committee is that there were all the stakeholders. We also had students, something that Mr. Filipowski didn't mention. We had students who came and they shared, and some of the ideas, the mobile app was actually first brought to us by students. High school kids were like, we really don't do websites. Can you give us something else? They had some great ideas, and it was a collaborative effort among everybody to put this together. And I know from a committee standpoint, we're just really excited to roll it out and see what the community thinks, because it's certainly going to be a really nice addition to our district.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll turn it back over to you, President Singh.
Thank you, Nick, and your communication committee. You did a great job. May I have a motion to recess the regular board meeting for the purpose of conducting the budget work session? Dr. Spicer, Mr. Pascalia, any, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. I would like to call the budget work session to order. All board members are present. Dr. Brownhall, Mr. Matursky.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, President Singh. I'm going to turn it over to our interim chief financial officer, assistant superintendent of business and management services, Mr. Tom Matursky. A lot of the information Tom will present, the board and community have seen before, but this is another view of it. So thank you very much, Mr. Matursky.
Thank you, Dr. Brownhall. Tonight, we're going to continue on with our 24-25 budget development process. And again, there are actually some significant changes that have happened between our February meeting and tonight, both on the expenditure as well as on the revenue side. Just for those who may not be familiar with the format, the first page here is on program continuation expenses. It's those items that we need to maintain the current program we have in place today in the 23-24 school year. And the column more on the right side is a look forward to the following year, 25-26. And that's like a placeholder for what we do expect or can expect at this time. So getting right to the information, I'm really going to highlight the changes that occurred. And the first thing I want to share is in salaries. That was able to be reduced $250,000 from what we saw in February. And that's a result of receiving some additional retirements over what we normally do. We already had about 20 retirements in that number, which was just a little bit under $3.1 million. If you look to the right to that 25-26, you'll see that that number is closer to 4 million normally and actually even higher in other years. So that's why our initial number was lower due to those 20 retirements that we had already taken into account. Moving down from there, the Social Security has not changed. However, if you look at the health insurance line, you're seeing that we have a very significant adjustment there, reducing that by $2.3 million. So what occurred? As you know, we're self-funding in our health insurance, and over the last 2 years, we have had significant increases in the amount of expenses we've been paying. That was continuing on through the first part of this year, but that trend seemed to drop down significantly toward the end of 23, and it's continued into 24. So with that trend continuing and reviewing this with our consultant, we're able to make a $2.3 million reduction, as I said there. So that's significant. Our BOCES number has not changed, so that's the same number as was presented in February. However, the transportation number has increased $775,000. And that's due to the fact that we looked at our current actual routes as of today at this period of time. We projected it to the new contract. As you all know, we have a 5-year agreement that takes effect with Student Transportation of America beginning next year in July. And so we had to add that money to this budget. Cybersecurity does not change. But what that does do is it reduces our increase here to about $9.4 million, which results in about a 4.19% increase. So looking to our next page, this is the enhancements that we're doing. This has not changed from what was presented in February, $509,520, representing additions in our special education department. 2 classes are going to be added at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and 1 at the elementary. This is a new slide. We have, for the first time, introduced budget reductions. Again, we incorporated that salary reduction already and the health insurance into our continuation slide, but this is over and above that. So what we did to try and offset some of that transportation expense increase is to reduce the pay down amount that is in our budget. This will not have a long-term impact on financial planning, but it does assist in bringing forward a lower budget and a lower budget increase. So what that does from a summary perspective on the numbers, you've got a continuation expense increase of $9,368,051. You have the program enhancements of $509,520, and now the $525,000 reduction in that area. So we have a new increase for 24-25 of $9,352,571, a working budget $232,740,574, 4.19% increase. But most importantly, I think if you look at the bottom, you're going to see that we reduced the budget by 1.03% from what was presented in February. So now I'm going to move to the revenue side, and I'm going to start with really the information on our tax levy. And I always begin there with the tax cap calculation. And I'm going to highlight three areas as I normally do, starting with that growth factor, which is provided to us by the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. That multiplies by our current year tax levy to give us a subtotal amount, which then we add our current budgeted payment in lieu of taxes to it for another subtotal amount, which is a little bit about $143 million, almost $400,000. That's what we then multiply the 1.02%, and that's really where many people refer to the tax cap as a 2% tax cap. So that's the 2% cap piece, keeping in mind that New York State had a CPI increase of 4.10% last year, which would have been applicable to the 2%. So you're under by 2.10%. Moving that forward, as the board knows, I'm going to drop down to what is called the carryover. Last year, we had a significant amount of foundation aid increase. So what we did is we did not use all of our tax levy. And so that amount is available for this year. So that makes a total maximum increase of $5,659,000. Taking this into account, the expenditure side, which you have seen, and some other changes which you are going to see on the revenue side, we're proposing now to reduce the levy for 24-25 to an increase of $4,155,000, which is 2.97%. And that is actually 26.5% below what the school district could levy to our community. Looking at the rest of the revenues, I'm going to go over this again in segments, starting with the state aid amount at the top. There are two changes that happen to that. First of all, we are anticipating that there will be some changes when the final New York State budget occurs. There will be more dollars going toward school districts, and I think principally to the foundation aid line. So that has been increased in consideration of that based on historical information and what we're hearing from Albany by $646,000. At the same time, I've mentioned in the past that I was going to look at building aid, and I did. And I saw that we had some projects in there where we don't believe we're going to have our final cost reports filed because they're still ongoing. There's still some contractors doing work on the security project. So that's been reduced by $300,000. So we have a net gain, though, of $346,000. Moving down, our sales tax revenues have continued to be strong. We received our January revenue from Erie County, and so we're able to add $250,000 to that. So now that's $1,250,000. We also added an additional $800,000 in our interest earnings with consideration to a conservative estimate next year, because we do think the interest rates will drop a little bit. But this amount, this $800,000, should still be a solid number for us. And that's a $2,860,000 total increase. And then lastly, we have a major impact here, which is a reduction of the tax levy from what was provided in February of 1.3 million. And so all of those items continue to allow us to reduce the fund balance and the reserves as was previously stated. So again, tax levy increase is 2.97%. And as I mentioned before, the CPI was 4.10%. So in summation here, you're seeing that, again, our working budget at this point is $232,740,574. Our tax cap was at 4.04%, about $145.6 million. Our proposed levy is significantly under $144,100,000 or 2.97%. And that we are 1,504,000 below the tax cap amount, and that was 204,000 below in February. So I think the key number here that I want to share is working deficit. We had almost a $2.4 million working deficit in February, and that is now zero. So our budget is balanced. We've included retirements, as I started out with, and we also have included the forecast for additional foundation aid.
Thank you very much. As always, very thorough. Thank you very much. So now, I'm sorry, Dr. Singh, you go. I'm sorry. Oh, no.
You don't have any questions?
Be quiet. I'm sorry.
No, I just had one question. Like, here we'll be voting to use the capital projects money to fund the air conditioning project. Assuming it is passed, how would it affect the budget moving forward? Because we have to fund the capital fund again, and we lose the money we're getting on interest.
The capital reserves are, as you said, Dr. Singh, funded with end of year fund balance. Every year is different. Every year is dependent upon, the final amount of revenues that we receive and the final amount of expenditure. So you may recall that last year we had the controller's report, and I emphasized that it's not really the budgets that matter, it's what the actuals are at the end of the year. So in looking forward to funding capital reserves, if we save money on the expenditure side, which we always try and do through everything you see, bids and all the other items that we try to maintain cost controls on, and if we are able to receive some additional revenues that are over and above our budget estimates, that provides us the opportunity to fund those reserves. And I would say positively that I see that there. What I can't forecast is what the reality will be, because every year is different.
Other board members with questions?
Sorry. Into that, you talked and mentioned about there could be extra money at the end that we typically put into the reserve budget. And again, do you believe there might be more options for enhanced revenue? And then the other option would be, can we, instead of putting it into the reserve budgets, lower the tax levy going into this year? I mean, it's an option. It's not saying we should do that. As an option to think about.
I think you're always looking at options to try and lower the levy. What I would say is, over the last 2 years, if this is the levy that goes forward, we have been under what this board could have levied to the community by almost $4 million. And there is a loss of future revenue to a certain degree when you're under that, because the compounding effect does not occur because those $4 million are not there. So having said all of that, every year is different, and you always have to be looking for the future. You always have to be looking forward and say, what happens if the sales tax revenue, for example, comes in lower for 1 year or 2 years? And that's why the budget has to have almost a multi-year look. The numbers that you see are not just looking forward to 1 year. They're looking forward so that if there's a negative adjustment, hopefully it's not going to be severe, but you're able to do it without impacting the tax levy. Because you don't want to have to go out with a super majority, a 60% vote of a levy, and ask your community for that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Your point is well taken. So thank you.
Mr. Mena?
Thank you. Mr. Matursky, thank you for this outstanding presentation. So I'm looking at bus transportation. It says in the packet, the district has reviewed our current in-district bus routes as well as our projected out-of-district bus routes to determine if the route numbers will be similar in 24 and 25. The district has experienced bus route additions. When applying this information to the new contract amounts, it is determined that an additional $775,000 is necessary for school bus transportation. Doesn't that seem like a lot of extra runs and a lot of extra money? I mean, $750,000. So my question is that for the entire 5-year contract that we have?
No, it's for 1 year. The reason why it's increasing is because we do have some special education runs that are going outside of the district. We do have private school runs. If you have one child who enrolls in a private school and they're outside the district and they do it within the timeline, we're required to take them, even if it's one bus. We always try and combine those as much as possible, but it's not. So one bus for one child is about $70,000 a year.
Understood. Even though it's hard to hear. But I guess this doesn't just come about. I mean, this is something that we've always had to provide. And so why wasn't this built into the bid of STA, knowing this? So if you're saying it's $775,000, how many additional runs do you anticipate? And is this going to be enough money to fund it?
I would say right now that represents about 10 runs.
Oh my God.
Now, what we're looking to do at the same time is every year is a little bit different. We get enrollment numbers at the end of July, and then we try and do bus consolidations, and we try and do that the best we possibly can. It's important to know that once we do this increase, the increases will continue, but they're likely to be lower. As you look forward to that 25, 26 year, you'll see that number is significantly lower. So this is kind of the year that we have to add the amount that's going to sustain us in the future. The contract is pricier. It's not unusual for Williamsville. It's just how it is out there. Drivers are still, in short supply. And what does that mean? They're paying drivers now, close to $25, $28, per hour. And they, before COVID, that rate was around $20 per hour. So, when they did their contract, they were not just thinking about, what they're going to do to recoup those differences. They're thinking about 5 years what they're paying. And they also have to think about, in that dollar amount, the bus replacement. They're going to have to do 100% bus replacement. I shared with the board that the first bus came in last week, and there's about 25 more that should be arriving before now and the end of this school year and then into the summer. But we have between, about 150 buses that they service to us. So all of that, and that's not even thinking about the cost increases for electric buses when that happens. Those are 3 times the cost of a regular diesel bus.
Yeah, I understand, and I'm going to keep beating this point that we've always had to provide that kind of transportation, and it seems to me like the company that won the bid, I don't want to say lowballed, but now they're trying to claw back an extra $750,000 for 1 year. Now, so in future years, our contract,
right,
I know it increases every year. Is it a set amount or a dollar amount, or is it a percentage of year to year that goes up?
I think I did not explain how the bid worked really clear, and I can help you understand that. The bid was not done on the number of routes that we have. The bid was done by pricing. And it was done on, they give us a price of what it is to for each route. and we apply our routes. We control our routes. So we're not being charged for what they bid out number. When we arrived at the bid estimate, it was just that it was an estimate, but the actual amount, it's just like what I said on our actual general fund budget. We have budgets and we have actuals. So every year, if we can cut bus runs, then that number will go down.
Well, have we looked into that? Have we looked into consolidating bus runs? I mean, we can.
We
5 to 12, grades 5 through 12, they can 0.2 of a mile.
We do.
350
but here's
yards.
the thing. There's two issues there. Number one is, what time does the bus get to school? Because if you lengthen the run and you're trying to put more kids on a run and reducing it, now that bus doesn't get to school on time. And the second thing is, if we have the runs that are closer to elementary, middle, they use the buses much more than high school. If you try and pack those buses up, believe me, I've gotten the calls from the parents on the first week of school, and they say the buses are overcrowded. Technically, you can have kids 3 in a seat. That's not something that we really try. We try and split the runs up, and that's what we do the first couple weeks of the year. We balance the loads, but we try and do it, and we will try and cut costs. But the reality is, between this and all the other costs that are associated with transportation, it's just a large number.
Thank you for your explanation.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Parents still have time to apply to the district for transportation for the privates and the non-district schools. They can still do that now.
Yes.
They have weeks to still do that, correct?
April 1st is the deadline. One more thing that I think may help you with the dollar increase. Although we have to budget it ahead of time, we get aid on that too. So our transportation aid will go up. It's just going up on a year lag. So that's the positive side of this.
So what's the total cost? What's our end of that $775,000 going to be a year?
We normally are getting about 70% aid.
You should have said that in the beginning. Thank you.
We have 2 more questions down there.
I just have a quick question about the private school one. I know we have to give that. Are there buses that we have the route, but no one's using? Because a lot of they're all being that. I'm just curious if they're like ghost buses.
No, we don't have any routes out there that don't have kids on it.
Okay.
And it's a 15-mile door-to-door from the school of residence to the school the child is being bused to. So if the distance door-to-door is 14.4 miles, that's another bus for a child.
Thank you. I was just curious.
No, I was just going to comment, it's like when we were talking about stacking up bus routes, I do remember the phone calls and the emails that we were getting about kids arriving 45 minutes late because the bus route had been doubled up and they were delivering a child to a private school that they couldn't get into the school until a certain time. And by the time they dropped them off and then got to the school, our kids were coming in at 45 minutes late. So I understand why we have to have a separate bus route.
Right. Yep. Those emails are always at the start of the school year, and there were many of those.
Yeah.
Correct.
Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you. We will now have a public forum for budget only. Anyone wishing to address the board in regard to the budget may go to the podium at this time. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the budget work session and public forum? Dr. Littman? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Brownhall, I hand it over to you for agenda items 6A, 6B, and 6C.
Thank you very much, President Singh. So my community update, because we did have a number of presentations this evening, my community update will be brief, and then we'll go right into 6B. And 6B will be coupled with 6C. 6C is not a separate presentation, but it does talk about the new capital reserve proposition. So with the community update, we'll start off. And the reason we have these first 2 slides, they all deal with the school calendar. And that's because in the questions, the comments that were submitted to the board at contact@williamsvillek12.org, a lot of individuals asked if there was a way that we can either start school in August, like many of the schools in the South do, and end school earlier in June, because some members of the public in the community thought that we went to school too late in June. And so I want to just provide, and I know it was a question from a board member, the information from the State Education Department and school law, right? So when we talk about the school year, I know it's easy for us as educators in the school district, as board members, to think the first school day and the last school day of being the school year. The school year in that term, when it's referred in education law, is really July 1 to June 30th, right? So that all encompasses the school year. Can students be in session before Labor Day? What about before September 1st? So education law provides that students must have full-time instruction beginning with the first day of September in which school is in session. So school cannot begin prior to September 1st. When you look at the calendars, though, September 1st is always right around the end of the last week of August, and it wraps into Labor Day. That's why we don't start until the day after Labor Day. What we can do in August, though, is hold our superintendent conference days, and that's what we do. So the last Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in August, we hold the superintendent conference days where teachers return and receive their professional learning, and they do professional learning at their school buildings. Can students be in session after rating day? Rating day is decided by the State Education Department, and it is a day in June once all Regents exams are completed, and it is the last day for teachers, and we have that on our calendar. However, the law does provide that instruction can be provided and counted after rating day. It just has to occur before June 30th. Historically, we have never done that as a district. I don't know that any district has, but it can occur after rating day. However, it cannot occur many days before rating day because the June Regents exams usually go up to the day before rating day. So that's why we can't end school early in June like some southern states do. They are, end the end of May, beginning of June, nor can we start in August. This is all governed by state law, and we follow that. So this is just for anyone's reference. It'll be in the community update and in board docs. Our speaker series, we had the last speaker series yesterday, Enhancing Student Learning Through Instructional Technology. And that video presentation is saved, and you can actually click the link to watch the video presentation. That presentation and the previous one, What to Do When Your Child is Struggling in School, will both be housed on the district website, and they will be references for our parents and community members. That was the last speaker series of the school year. We will start the new speaker series in October of 2024. Our community forum will take place on Tuesday, March 26th at Casey Middle School following the budget work session. As you heard the motion when the meeting started, the budget work session will begin at 6:30 p.m. and the community forum shortly after at approximately 7 o'clock p.m. in the Casey Middle School library. Our annual budget vote and school board elections will take place on Tuesday, May 21st at the North High School Gymnasium from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. So we encourage all of our community members, anyone that can vote, even our students who are over the age of 18 or older, to come out and vote that day. We pride ourselves on the public support we get on that day. We want to continue that. Total solar eclipse. It's a funny story because when I first started in the district, and this was July 2021, Mr. Mark Percy at North set up a meeting with me through Nick Filipowski. And he said, Dr. Brownhall, I want to get your mindset for the solar eclipse that's happening in 2024. I said, Nick, why you bring this man here? He's talking about 3 years later. But I didn't realize how big of an event it's going to be. And I thank Mark Percy for doing that. That forward thinking and planning, because I feel very confident that we are prepared to provide our families and our students the glasses that are necessary. The forward thinking of myself and the other superintendents to cancel school that day. And we are working to look at what type of remote work we will have for our 12-month employees that day. Many of you may remember the Erie County Executive asked a couple of weeks ago for businesses to consider also which of their employees don't need to travel that day into the offices, because we do anticipate a large amount of guests in our region during that time period. So we're planning ahead for that day. And again, I thank Mark Percy for being forward thinking and coming to me 3 years in advance to make sure we had this day marked on the calendar. And there's been so much planning around this day. I want to thank him. I want to thank our instructional staff. I want to thank Nick Filipowski for all the work. So I said that to say there will be no school on Monday, April 8th. We will be extending spring break by 1 day. The student packets are being sent home on Wednesday, March 20th. Well, they'll have 2 solar eclipse viewing glasses and 1 flyer inside. And the faculty and staff packets are being sent the week of March 25th. And they will have 1 solar eclipse pair of viewing glasses and 1 flyer. Our SEAC update. So it's very important. So our board members, our families of students that are in our special education programming, our staff members all received the Thought Exchange survey. We are looking for great feedback from all of those special education stakeholders that will really formulate and give us ideas and thoughts to fuel our vision and our mission that is taking place with our special education strategic planning team. So please make sure that you check your spam and junk folder for your QR code and the survey link, just to make sure it did not fall into that, because everyone that received that, we really do value your opinion and want to get that information from you. At our last meeting that was held on Monday, we clarified roles regarding SEAC and the Strategic Action Planning Group and Task Force. We gave updates on Lighted Up Blue for autism awareness and unified athletics presentation. I know Mr. Bulin presented that. And our next meeting is scheduled for April 15th. It is pushed back a week because of the spring recess and the solar eclipse. A reminder, and Dr. Bellin covered this in her presentation. I want to make sure we had this slide in the community update also, the New York State grade 3 through 8 testing dates. From the last board meeting, I wanted to make sure we included the summer school dates also, elementary and middle school, July 9th through August 19th at Transit Middle School. High school summer school will be held at Williamsville East, July 8th through August 20th, and the special education summer school will be located at High Middle School, July 8th through August 16th. I encourage parents to make sure you're talking with your school building, because for the elementary and middle and high school, summer school will not be every day. For most of the weeks, it will be Monday through Thursday. Technology 2026. So what is this? So we are forming a committee, and we're really looking at what will technology look like in our classrooms, or what technology will our classrooms need for the future. And so when we have that year 2026 looking forward, we want to know what will be necessary in our classrooms. We know that our interactive whiteboards that are in the classroom, many of them cannot be repaired any longer. The parts are not being made for them. So we're saying, if that is the case, what are our teachers going to be using that will also be student friendly in the future? So we are forming a committee with teachers, with administrators, with district staff to really look into that. And so I want to thank both Tom Matursky and Dr. Bellin for, as a cabinet members, leading that. I know Assistant Superintendent Scanzuzo's department is in that. And I also know that HR is in that, to look at what type of technology we'll need in HR to really be forward facing with our employees also. The International Society for Technology and Education, many of our staff who are instructional technology coaches will be attending that conference, along with the Foundational Educational Technology Conference, to really understand what's out there, what we need to be forward thinking about, especially when we're preparing our classrooms for the technology that they will need in the year 2026. and that is a community update. So, are there any questions about the community update? Thank you, board members. At this time, I am going to turn it over to our interim assistant superintendent of finance and management services to discuss information and updates for our elementary school air conditioning capital project. Tom, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Dr. Brownhall. So as the Board of Education knows, we have a capital project that was actually approved back in 2022. I thought that to begin this presentation, we should start with going back to that period of time and reviewing what the goals were when we were planning the project. And they really were three major goals. One was to provide air conditioning at every classroom in the district that did not currently have it. We also wanted to improve ventilation. Remember, we're coming off of COVID-19, ventilation and filtration combined. And we wanted to make sure that the new systems were energy savings, energy compliant. In the end, the final goals were that we were going to really concentrate on the elementary schools. And we got there because when we did our initial cost estimates, they were so far above what we were thinking we could do to the community without having an impact to the tax levy that we decided to do this in a phased approach. We also know that we were improving the ventilation and the filtration, so that was being done. We were getting energy savings. And at the same time, we were doing some what we call casework or cabinetry replacement at the elementary schools along their window walls. You may, if you're in the buildings, you know those walls, those cabinets were original to the building. So the old units were situated there. They needed to come out. So we're going to remove them and put in new cabinetry. So what did that proposition look like? It was approved on May 17th, 2022. It utilized three as reserves for about 23, almost $24 million, as you can see. We were adding 2 years, $1.5 million in each year, the 23, 24, and 24, 25 years of budgetary outlay. And we were also including a debt amount, a new debt amount of about $37.7 million for a total proposition of $64,119,318. So with that approval, what we did is our consultants, our architects, our engineers, they started to go forward after that May vote and do the planning, the design, all the information, all the details that are required to do two things: submit to the New York State Education Department for their review and approval, and secondly, to allow us to provide documents for bidding. We received our approval from the New York State Education Department this past October 6th. We went out to bid on the 23rd, and we opened bids on December 5th. Those bids were well over our budget. And as a result, we requested on January 9th that the board reject the bids. So having said that, we were $22,902,684 or $604 over budget, and that's an estimate. And remember that total proposition was about 64.1 million. But the reality is all of that proposition is not just for construction expense, it's for all the expenses. The construction budget was about $53 million. So we're almost 50% over budget. So what we did, what determined the budget overages? Well, it really started with the severe lack of construction workers in our area. This started before this, but it was really accelerated with the fact that we've got some major projects going on. Below, you'll see what they are. And the major one is the Buffalo Bills Stadium, $1.7 billion worth and growing. So the labor costs were twice as high as what we expected. We had a lot of second shift work put into the project so that we would not impact our education program in the buildings. And that was extending the work timeline, and it basically reduced efficiency. And we heard that back from our contractors upon talking with them after the bids were received. And of course, material costs were higher. We're not alone in this. You can see I listed an article from the Buffalo News. Many other our neighboring school districts have had different had similar situations. So what did we do? 4-step process. Step 1 was looking at ourselves. And so what we had to do is review and redesign and do value engineering. So the keys to lowering our costs were to review our system designs, really ask ourselves the question, can we do it better, less expensive? Reduce the amount of labor work that was incorporated to put this in, reduce the specified materials, review the equipment specifications, and then also think a little bit out of the box and then develop bid reduction alternates. So the design changes that we have added, these are just a few of them I'm highlighting, using exposed ductwork. So if you go into many buildings, you'll see the commercial look. It's the round exposed ductwork. By doing that, we're saving labor, we're saving expenses because everything else was above the ceiling. So just as in this room, you see the ventilations, that was how we planned it. When you take the ceilings down, that's expensive. You also run into conflicts. There's a lot of things above these ceilings that we don't see. Wires, cables, other ductwork, some stuff that's electric. It's all up there and it all would have to be reviewed and moved, and that costs money. So we also we're going to reduce second shift work. How are we doing that? That's thinking out of the box. We're going to use swing space in the schools. This will be a little bit inconvenient for the elementary schools if this moves forward, but it's doable. And it's only for a short period of time because the thought process is that they can do 2 classrooms at a time, and that should take about a 4-week period of time. Then the people go back into their classrooms, and then they move on. They move on to a different 2 more classrooms. So we're also eliminating some equipment buildings that we put together. Initially, every school had an outbuilding that was built for the chiller systems as well as the heating systems. They were going to be put out there. We went back, we redesigned the way that they were going to fit in the building. We eliminated 3 of those buildings and we were able to reduce the size of others. And then again, efficiency on ductwork by redesigning where we're putting the equipment on the roof, we can reduce the runs and that saves money. The second thing that we did, step 2, is to add bid day alternates. We always have bid day alternates, but we had to add some deduct alternates here. And in this project, I want to stress the last item first. We hope that we don't have to take any of these. We want to award 100%, but we have to do this in order, and we have to share it with everyone to be transparent as well. So the areas that are not interrelated, that can be separate systems, are what you see here. So it's gyms, cafeterias, libraries, kitchens, removing boilers or the heating systems from the schools, and just leaving the chillers and leaving their original ones, and removing the hot water systems. Step 3 is the part that we're now talking about additional funding. So what you're seeing here is that we would add capital reserve dollars from these reserves. Some of these are the same, but most of them are different from what were done originally. And the keys here are what I highlighted. By using the reserves, you're not impacting the current or future tax levies. You're not impacting the budget. You're not impacting the budget in the future. What you are doing, though, is you're right now with this type of allocation, you're using up pretty much all of our reserve dollars. Now, it can be built up again, but it will take a little more time. So it could have an impact on a future capital project. Step 4 is to add a budgetary outlay. $3 million, one time, 24-25, the upcoming budget that would be voted on this coming May. This won't increase the budget because it's a reallocation. We would be moving dollars from the debt service line to the budget outlay. This would be a single year, as I mentioned. It would have to go back in the next year in 25-26. It's available due, the board may remember, last May you approved a pay down of debt. That pay down has allowed us to have a lower debt payment. And as a result of that, we can do this. But as I said, it has to be transferred back to pay for this debt in the air conditioning project, that $37 million that's still there, as well as any future debt that you may want to do in a future project. So we had one more item here that we wanted to look at. If we're adding dollars to the project, when we began this project, I mentioned how we're replacing the casework. That's basically 3 rows of tile there. And a lot of these classrooms in the elementary school were built in the 60s. They have asbestos floor tile. It's not necessarily hazardous, but it's something that we should address. And this is the time to address it. If you want to do it right, you remove the floor tile in the classrooms. So when we considered adding dollars, we said, let's do this right. Let's add some dollars that allows us to remove the elementary classrooms asbestos floor tile. So what that does is it brings us to what would be a total proposition. That would be $22,960,000. You would be considering this up until the March 28th date and making a decision there. And if it is something that the board wishes to move forward, then the proposition would be on the 21st of May. And again, there's no impact to the budget, to the tax levy, or future tax levies in doing this. So what are the pros and cons of doing the additional funding? Well, starting with the pros, certainly we're adding air conditioning in the elementary schools as was originally agreed and approved in the 22 proposition. Again, no impact on tax levy, tax rate, future budgets. And it's probably the one-time window that, or the only time window we have to do this at the current costs. And then we're doing the asbestos replacement on the flooring in the classrooms. On the con side, we're using up pretty much all the reserves, so that needs to be stated. The costs have increased exponentially. The fall bid pricing's not assured either, but it's a shorter timeline. And the funding doesn't guarantee that all the work can be done. That's why those bid deduct alternates are there. So what are the other alternatives if we don't do the funding? Certainly, you could do 3 buildings without doing anything more. And then you have the question about what 3 buildings do you want to do? Secondly, you could postpone the project indefinitely and wait to see what happens after the major capital projects are done. You could proceed with the current funding and do 3 buildings, and then maybe midway through the project, see what the market looks like for labor and go out and possibly do more funding or decide that that's where you want to end. And then lastly, you could just abandon the project completely. So with that, we're at the point where if we do this new funding, it's $22,960,000. I know I'm saying this several times, but it's important. It would not impact our budget. It would not impact the tax levy. It would not impact the tax rate, and it would not add debt in the future. It would allow us to do replacement of those asbestos tiles in the schools. And right now, if we do this, it's probably the very best opportunity you're going to have to complete this project at the current cost, high as they are, but at those costs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matursky. That was a lot. And this is why we put it in the board packet on Thursday for a preview, right? But now is the opportunity for board members to ask any questions. I believe Dr. Singh wanted to go first.
I just had one question, Tom. That for the $3 million, would it be part of the next year's budget line?
Yes, it would be moved from the debt service line to the line that would be for 24-25 for budgetary outlay. And if you look at the budget, if this were to happen when it's presented, it would actually be 4.5 million. And the reason for that is, if you go back to the very beginning, we already allocated 1.5 million. So we're able to do it. We're able to do it because of the pay down, one-time shot.
Would this one put us over 3% increase?
there would be no increase on the tax levy. It would be the 2.97% that I said, that remains the same. That does not change with this.
And is there any chance we'll get additional state funding for the increase in this project?
The state funding is always based on final expenses. So the way that works is if you do all the work, this is going to be a 3-year project. So if I go forward to 27, 28 when it's done and you file your reports, 28, 29 is when you get the first aid on this project.
Wow. I have a question.
Dr. Lippman asked the percentage of aid. Right now it's at 66.5%.
Mike, you want to go?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Tom. So how long does it take, I might have missed it, to repay this money, and what interest rate do you think we'll borrow it at?
Are you talking about the capital reserve or our debt that we would be?
The debt.
The debt is, the way we do that, Mr. Manna, is we take out bond anticipation notes, short term, for what our cash flow needs are throughout the project. And then if we have dollars available before those notes fully mature into a bond, which would be at the very end, we do pay downs. So we try and reduce the dollar amounts every year. So we balance in that way 2 financial items. Balance number 1 is looking to the future, doing a pay down of the debt so your bond amount will be lower, your interest payments that you're paying over basically 18 years will be lower, and to funding capital reserves, which are helping you offset the amount you're going to borrow from the beginning. So those things are kind of intertwined. Going right to your question, what are the interest rates? Right now, I can tell you that at our AA1 rating, about $30 million was just taken out at about 4%. Now, that will change by the time you're looking at this, but that was the rate that's currently out there right now.
And if we draw down all the capital reserves, let's say there's unanticipated costs, which surely there will be, where do we either get the money from somewhere else, or do we just pare down the project?
Oh, what would happen is when we do bid awards, we're buying it at that time. Everything's locked in. And so the way that this is structured on the financing end, and especially that additional $3 million budgetary outlay, we have considered a 25%. This is normal, a 25%. I would say it's for construction estimates and change orders within the project budget. So it's already accounted for, is really the answer.
Thank you.
Mr. Bruno?
If we move forward, what percentage of the project do you think will, and this may be unanswered, what percentage of the project will be done with that funding?
I believe 100%. And the reason I say that is because I'm always a little bit conservative. But the only thing I will say is that the construction is really in a weird place right now.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to have those bid alternates. But we would, if anything's going to come out, it's going to be the non-instructional spaces first, right? That's our goal. Like the libraries would be the first thing to be added in. That's where kids are a lot. We probably would leave the gyms out a little bit because they're big spaces anyway. And the auditoriums, that's another one where, if we had to, we might have to take those out. But there's not every elementary even has an aud. So that's how we would look for it. But I do think we're in a position with these numbers to try and do the whole project.
Thank you.
Okay. Then Mr. Bascalia?
Yeah, you mentioned about the capital reserve balance being depleted. As an estimate, how long would it be to build that back up in the future? And I know it's an estimate. I know it's not an exact science.
Right. And I will answer that in a very brief way. There's a lot of complicated factors that you all know about. So if we can have about a $5 or $6 million in fund balance on an ongoing basis, as I said, you then have to make a determination on what's the financial benefit of putting it in a reserve or splitting it between a reserve and a debt pay down. And what is going to create the most savings to the community? If interest rates are high, you want to do more of a pay down, right? So that in the long run, your community's not paying that interest. If the interest rates fall down, you want to put it in your reserve, because that's going to make the future borrowings less, because you're not going to have to use borrowings to fund the project. So that's the answer. I think that you can blend it. And as far as timeline, we've got about $38 million in our reserves right now. And there'll be a little bit more this year. So you're probably talking about a 7 to 8 year period if things go the way they have right now with today, to get them back to like a $38 to $40 million level.
And how does that affect, and not to say we're going to do one anytime soon after this, but capital projects in the future then? I mean, you have to raise that. I mean, you're looking.
Again, our district has been very proactive in using reserves, as you all know. And that has helped really allow us to do more work than what we actually could pay for if we're only using our level debt service, because that's another factor of the financing plans. We don't increase the debt service when we go for a new project like other schools do. We say when our debt is paid off, we have more capacity, we then do a project. So having said that, I think, again, it's going to be based upon timing. It's going to be based upon the dollar amount of the project. If you want to do a $10 million project, you could probably do that very quickly, 3-4 years. If you want to do a $50 million project, now you have to consider, what's your debt load, what your leveraging is on your debt. And then, maybe there's some options within the budget that are there that you could transfer to add debt without increasing the budget or the levy too. So there's some financial ability to do some of those things.
Okay, and just one last question. I don't know if Mr. Matursi can answer this, but ultimately, if it was decided not to move forward with this extra budget, I mean, essentially, who's deciding, or we do the alternative, I should say that. Who's deciding what 3 schools are getting done? It's an honest question, actually. I know we're all laughing, but ultimately, I mean, we are representing our constituents, and that is, as I took this in, and we knew a couple of days ago that was a big question of mine. I won't say it is a concern, but obviously, as you mentioned, is alternative funding if it's not increased, and I guess that technically falls on us or Brown Hall, maybe.
I would have to.
I'm serious. Yeah. That's a question I had.
That would need a lot of study. It would, right? We need a lot of study and a lot of conversation on what recommendations would be brought to the board and why, right? So study, conversation, and understanding why the recommendations would be made for 3 schools as opposed to these other 3 schools, right?
And I don't ask that to be rude or just.
Oh, I know. Oh, no.
It's a question, a true question to make sure we're making the right decision by March 28th.
Let me tell you, when Tom and I went over and we discussed these things, right? And I'm like, now, who would make that decision? I'm looked at me, he said, probably you. And to the board, I'm like, yep, absolutely. So these are discussions we have. And I said it jokingly, like, Tom, but I know, right? And so, but that's something as elected officials, you all would definitely have to be involved in that and would have to approve those 3 schools being the ones that we move forward with. And that is a lot of thought that would have to go into that.
Dr. Littman?
Yeah, say my joke tied into that is that could impact open enrollment in some of the schools down the road too. But I guess my question, just for gathering information, we do have some schools now that were built with air conditioning.
Transit Middle, East High School, the Addition,
okay,
a little bit in North High School.
Okay, so because I just want to get that, clarity. And how is it determined, when air conditioning is set and at what temperature? And I guess the other question is, how often is the air conditioning used in reality?
We normally turn the systems over because you have to have heating or air conditioning in most of these buildings, based on weather forecast, to be very honest. So In September, it's usually turned over. You have to have heat in place by September 15th, I believe. That's SED requirement.
Okay.
And then in the spring, again, it's weather forecast. It's probably around the second week of May when we start putting the air conditionings on and the coolers on those systems.
Okay.
We get them
Come in a
going.
month. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask one more
That's a short period of time, technically.
Mr. Pascali?
And just to tie into that, though, and this has been talked to not just by school districts, by legislators of certain temperatures now, almost like snow days with heat days.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that worries me too, thinking of the future. Because if you don't have air conditioning, then all of a sudden you're canceling school, you're running out of those 180 days. Just a thought as we're thinking about all this.
Mr. Bullen?
This may go without saying, but Tom, you don't envision a time that if we put this off, that's going to be any cheaper. It will just go up exponentially.
Correct.
And I know when we talked about it initially, part of that was the availability to have summer school in an elementary school building, which we do not have the capacity to do now.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Tom, could you highlight just information on the new capital reserve proposition that is also just information sharing?
Sure. So that reserve is a standard 18 years, $39,500,000. As you see, we've used a lot of our reserves, and the New York State Comptroller's Office has said, and this is the interpretation in law, that once you fund a reserve to its maximum, and then you have the community, in this case, approve expenditures from it, you can't refund that same reserve. It's considered extinct at that point. So that is why we need to continue to have new reserves, and that's why you saw in the presentation I had all these different years listed, because those reserves are now at the point where they're totally exhausted. This reserve would allow the district the ability to do just what you are all saying, putting some more funds away. The last reserve that we have, which was the 2022 reserve, has about $14 million left in funding in that reserve. So to get where you're all thinking, which is up to about 40 million, you need a new reserve.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you very much for all of the information you shared tonight, which is a lot and a lot to think about. And we appreciate you providing all that information. Thank you very much. President Singh, I'll turn it back over to you.
Moving on to student calendar. Would someone now like to make a motion to approve and adopt the 2024-2025 student calendar as presented?
We have to take it off the table.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the calendar as it is.
Well, I think you want to make the motion to take from the table the motion to amend.
Yes.
Right.
I'm sorry. Yes. I'd like to make that motion.
Wait a second. Dr. Littman.
Off the table.
Off the table, the amend.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to put forth the idea that we should add in the Jewish holiday that's falling during the school year this year, and that I guess the arguments for this are manifold, and I've made them before, but I will make them again. If we truly believe in DEI, this is a no-brainer. That we can't speak out both sides of our mouths. We've added other holidays. I don't see how we can not use this holiday. This is a high-performing district, and students and parents will most likely, I guess this goes back to the data that our vice president astutely asked to see about student attendance on those days. I don't think that's an accurate metric just because of there's so many different measurements. Some parents will be like, no, if there's school, you got to go. It depends on how religious you are. It's a very different thing. And again, if we're going to honor some students, we have to honor all the traditions and cultures inside of our district. And this is going to sound silly, but I think we need to be on the right side of history and accepting everybody in our district who is represented. And I guess those are the strongest arguments that I have come up with.
I have a question. What was the DEI committee's sense of this?
Right. And so when the DEI committee received the letter requesting that, it was a request to substitute Rosh Hashanah for Yom Kippur. So we don't substitute holidays. And so that is why the DEI committee did not recommend it in the initial resolution. And the DEI committee said, let's talk to the board about bringing a motion to actually add Rosh Hashanah only for the 24-25 school year, not like the other resolution was to have those identified religious holidays continue, because we'll have Yom Kippur after 24-25 that falls on a school day. So the recommendation from the DEI committee was to bring the calendar to the board, and then the board could pass a motion to identify Rosh Hashanah for the 24-25 school year as October 3rd.
Any other comments? Dr. Littman?
Well, I would just say, I support Mr. Buelen's key points. And I know we look a lot at data, talking to Jewish students and their families. Not all of the students take the holidays. It's similar to the achievement data. Not every student is reported, so not every absence is reported. I think it's a 1-year exchange for a holiday we would have if the calendar was different. So I don't think it changes too much, but I do think it has value for all of our Jewish students and the Jewish faculty and the community in general to support DEI, that every area is included.
May I say something?
Yes.
And I just want to keep in mind that we will still have more than the 180 required days, and we will still have 5 snow days if Rosh Hashanah is identified. And this is only because I know Mr. Buelen expressed last time that asked the DEI committee to reconvene and look at it for years in the future, but that's not being considered now. Only thing that's being considered is for the 24-25 school year. So we will still have more than our 180 days, and we will still have 5 snow days. I just want to make sure we say that.
I think the other thing is it doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't hurt us. It doesn't hurt student achievement. It doesn't mean we're losing days. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think Mr. Buelen has a lot of valid points, but it does hurt from constituents I've heard from. It does hurt their family pocket, discussing days off and family care and, babysitters. And that's what I take into account. And I've heard from a lot that already have expressed it's just another day I have to either take off or pay. Ultimately, that's what I hear. I'm just saying. So it's just
Ms. Kasberg-Bogner?
Yes. As I've said before, so I'll keep it concise this time. I think the difficulty here is really truly honoring all of our stakeholders. There's no way that we could possibly observe every single religious or cultural observance that happens in this district. So it's making those decisions. Which ones are we going to observe? We had a process in place to have the DEI committee look at that and make recommendations to the board. And this one was not recommended by the DEI committee. So that is my hesitation at this moment.
Dr. Littman?
I would say, was there anybody representing Judaism on that committee? Do we know of?
And I just want to be clear that we did not pick, or individuals on that committee weren't representative of any religion. The individuals from that committee, when the board members referred that recommendation or that question that came from a community forum where a parent asked, how do they petition the board to have a religious day off? That was referred to the DEI committee. The DEI committee formed the DEI calendar subcommittee because the DEI district-wide committee was not formed to look at issues of that nature. It was to develop the DEI plan for the district. So when we inquired of members of the DEI committee that would be interested in being a part of the DEI calendar subcommittee, that's how we got members. We did not seek out members that represented individual religious organizations. And the way the recommendation of the days came about was because those were the ones that we looked at the attendance data for, and because those were the ones that were headed to the governor's desk to be considered. Now, I do know that the Yom Kippur and the Rosh Hashanah were not considered because many of the legislators thought that schools already had those days off. This is what I heard from a state official, that they thought schools had those days off because so many schools do. Now, we do give Yom Kippur off, and that is a Jewish holiday, and we've done that for a number of years, right?
Yes.
And so that is why, so I'm just giving you the reasoning and the rationale why the DEI committee handled it the way it did. It wasn't an oversight, it wasn't neglect. However, these were the things that were considered.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it can't be changed. That's what we're discussing now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
To Mr. Buelen's other point that he made at the February meeting, asking that it be sent back for the DEI committee to have consideration of Rosh Hashanah.
I just think that it would send such the bad message if we don't give this holiday off. It would make this district less welcoming to the Jewish staff, faculty, and students. And that is just, to me, not the message that we as Williamsville want to send out to the community.
Do other districts have this day off? Would be one of the few.
We studied, and I know the school districts that we studied, I believe, I know New York City has it off, but I believe the Brighton School District also has this day off, or they have Yom Kippur. I'm not sure which one, and I'm not sure how they're handling it for next year.
Dr. Brown, just one question. So what is the process to have this considered by the DEI committee for the next calendar?
Right. And so that is something that Board Member Buelen will ask the board to send that back to the DEI calendar committee for the 25-26 school year.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. All in favor of amending the 24-25 student calendar to observe Rosh Hashanah?
That's right.
Sorry, is it?
Yeah.
I missed one. Okay. There was second the discussion. So okay, all in favor of amending the 2024-2025 calendar to observe Rosh Hashanah? Uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion carries 7-2.
Thank you.
You got to ask for it. Yeah.
No.
Anyone abstaining?
Opposing?
Opposing?
Not opposing. No. Yes. No. Abstain.
Anyone abstaining?
Abstaining.
So the motion carries 7-2.
That's right.
Is there a further discussion on adopting the calendar as amended?
Oh, I just want to comment in reading through this. Under Memorial Day recess, I mean, all the other holidays don't have recess after it. So I don't know if we need to include the word Memorial Day recess because it's a regular national holiday anyway. So it's up to you guys.
Are you talking? So let me just go where you're talking. You're talking about 6D?
Says Memorial Day recess.
On the calendar?
Yeah, I'm the one I have printed out. Does yours say that?
It says spring recess.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a holiday and we have President's Day. We have,
okay.
We have Indigenous people. All of the others don't say recess on them. Just
all right. We will
at school. That's just
absolutely. We will change that to Memorial Day.
Yeah, just consistent.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Everything else looks great.
Sorry.
It is.
I mean, going back again. Is any other?
I just want to clarify, that will mean that October 3rd will be noted as a superintendent's day, correct?
It will.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So teachers will be reporting.
Correct. It will be superintendent / staff development day. Correct.
And the kids will be happy to get a day off.
Is any further discussion on adopting the calendar as amended? All in favor of the calendar as amended? I think we did this, right?
Yeah.
Motion approved, second.
Right?
We just did this.
Yeah, we did the,
No,
we did
that's
the,
for voting.
we did the motion last time.
Yeah, we did that. Okay. Then moving on to the next item, the president's
Did we get a,
You didn't get-
well,
We have to vote on it.
Voted on, we got
So we didn't get the original motion because Mr. Bulin moved to take it from the table before we voted on the original. We motioned and seconded the original. So we have to go back to that,
Yes. Okay.
to the first, second, and then, yeah.
right, so
We're talking about the first one, okay. Sorry. Is there a further discussion on adopting the calendar as amended? All in favor of the calendar as amended? Opposed? Abstained?
We already did that. You got to ask.
No, this is,
No,
for
this
the-
is-
this is for the full calendar as amended.
Yeah, this is.
Abstained?
I'm voting no on the full calendar.
No. Okay.
that's 711.
Okay. Motion carries 711. So moving on to President's report. The onboarding committee meeting will be held in April. The date is to be determined. Community forum will be held after the special budget work meeting. Start time is at 7 o'clock in KC Middle School Library. After school with staff, conversations with the board will be held on Wednesday, March 27th in the South High School cafeteria, 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. And a Board of Education retreat will be held on April 24th. SIAC Student Forum with the Board of Education will be on Monday, May 20th. Other events and building visits are listed in board docs. Any board member questions, comments regarding the events or building visits? Okay.
He's got it.
Ms. Councilmember Bogner?
I believe that officially we are supposed to speak at the board meeting about our visitations. So I'm just saying that we did visit Maple East and Maple West. We were actually able to see a new phonics lesson that was taking place at Maple East, which I know Dr. Balin had presented about the ELA curriculum. I believe it was in September. So it was a wonderful visit, being able to see that instruction taking place, and all went well in the visit.
Dr. Littman?
And just so you know, I do plan on attending the visits at Heim Elementary and Heim Middle. I'm not on the list there. It's a short walk from the house.
And thank you, Crystal, for filing the report. Item 7B through 7I. 7B, board candidate information is available. If interested, please reach out to District Secretary Lynn Carey. 7C, annual voter information is also in board docs. 7D, policy review committee, 8,000 committee will meet in the coming months, date and time to be determined. 7E and 7F, ECASB and NISBA items are in board docs. Mrs. Kazmarag Bogner will be attending the NSBA virtual conference on April 6th to 8th. Any questions or comments regarding any other ECASB or NISBA items? Ms. Pullen?
Yes, I attended the delegate assembly meeting for which we did not have a quorum, but we did vote remotely as is allowed for in the bylaws. So we did pass the BOCES budget. There will not be dues increase for board membership to BOCES again for the 10th year in a row. So
I think you mean ECASB, correct?
yes, correct. Sorry. It is at the BOCES campus, so sorry. But the next delegate meeting is on the same date as our annual meeting in May. So I have already said that neither myself nor our alternate would be able to be there. So we will no doubt be able to do remote voting again for that one.
Continuing on 7G, Erie 1 BOCES calls for nominations. Nominations for 81 BOCES Board of Education must be received on or before March 18th. We'll make our nominations during agenda item 15A. 7H, Erie 1 BOCES Annual Meeting Notice and Vote. All 19 component school districts are required to vote on Erie 1 BOCES budget and Erie 1 BOCES board candidates in the third Tuesday in April. 7I, under board liaison assignments, school notes from our meetings are in board docs. Does anyone have anything to repeat under liaison assignments? Correspondence? No correspondence was received since the last meeting. Under items 9 through 13, minutes, personnel, business, and finance, exceptional education, special needs and student activities, and district facilities and support services. May I have a motion to approve the agenda items 9 through 13 as presented? Mr. Manna, Ms. Poolen, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. On behalf of the board, congratulations and welcome to Michael Kelly, the newly appointed Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Management Services.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the unanimous vote. This is a tremendous opportunity and one I'm very much looking forward to. And, you know, I was driving here and I have a couple of quick stories. My daughter is a freshman at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, and I hadn't talked to her for a few days. So I called her up and I was talking to her on the way down here, and she said, "You're going to the Williamsville Board of Education meeting?" I said, "Yes." She said, "You know what I'm thinking?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, that was the last soccer game I ever played was against Williamsville North. I lost and finished my high school soccer career against Williamsville." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, that's a bad memory." She said, "No, because this is a really good thing for us." She said, "Remember, if you can't beat them, join them." And so here I am today, joining the Williamsville team and family. So I thought of that, and everybody was so welcoming to me when I came in today. And you know, it reminded me of a popular quote that everybody's probably heard before. There's no such thing as strangers, only friends you haven't met yet. And that's the way I really feel here. And I feel a real connection to Williamsville because for a long period of time, I worked at 6350 Main Street at Gateway Longview as their CFO. And every day I would come into Williamsville and I really felt part of the community. So in a way, this is a real homecoming for me and, you know, a place I'm very comfortable with and very much looking forward to being part of this group. So thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Welcome, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Picture.
Michael, time for pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Stayed.
Big shoes.
At this time, I would like to thank the following retirees for their service to the district. Susan Merlino, science teacher at Heim Middle School for 34 years of service.
Wow.
Jacqueline Retz, elementary teacher at Heim Elementary School for 33 years of service. And Gain Sloma, clerk typist from East High School. Is there a motion to take from the table policies 2110, 3110, 5140, 5321, 5322, 5323, 5731, 6550, 6560, 7350, retire, 6560 from 2009, 7619, 2120, 2310, 3120, 3130, 3250, 5330, 6440, 6460, 6510, and 6520. Second reading and adoption. Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner, Dr. Spicer, any discussion? All in favor? The motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion for second reading and adoption for policies 2110, 3110, 5140, 5321, 5322, 5323, 5731, 6550, 6560, 7350, and retiring policy 6560, 7619, 2120, 2310, 3120, 3130, 3250, 5330, 6440, 6460, 6510, 6520 as presented. Kazmarek-Bogner, Ms. Poland, any discussion?
Just a question on 2110. You brought that one up, right? The one about orienting new board members. Just a comment on number 2. The electee shall be invited to attend board meetings and participate in this discussion, knowing that would be typically one board meeting in June. And I read that and I think about, well, we have executive session, and I know they're not invited to that, but, I guess my question is, should that be included there, or that's just understood that it's only the regular board meeting?
It could not be.
I know that, but if you read it, you say we're participating in the discussion of the board. I mean, I'm just looking for clarity.
I guess it's separate than executive session discussion.
They could discuss, but they couldn't vote.
Yeah.
They could not be included in executive session.
Yeah, well, that's why I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
somebody doesn't read this and go, well, you're going to have a meeting before the meeting. I want to be there. And, okay, I think we know that.
And it's
My only
usually
point.
2 board meetings, right?
What's that?
It's usually 2 board meetings.
May,
You have the May 28th board meeting, the week after.
Hey, right after, you're right.
And then the June.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. No, that's the only point.
Sorry.
Just a vote.
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion to keep policy 6191 on the table for second reading and adoption for the April meeting? Dr. Littman? Ms. Blackinger? Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion for the first reading of the policies 7134, 7313, and 7320 as presented? Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner, Dr. Spicer? Any discussion? No? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. May I have a motion to table these policies for second reading and adoption for April meeting? Ms. Kazmarek-Bogner, Mr. Manna, all in favor? Motion carries unanimously. At the annual 81 BOCES meeting, they will be reviewing the nominations for the April elections for 2 board member seats, which carry a 3-year term. Presently, there are 2 candidates who are seeking re-election. We have been provided with the letters for review. Would someone like to make a motion to nominate candidate for 81 BOCES board? Kazmarek-Bogner?
Yes. I move to nominate Edward Cavan, the incumbent located in the Sweet Homes School District, as a candidate for the election to be held on April 16th, 2024, to serve as a trustee for the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, First Supervisory District of Erie County, in a term beginning July 1st, 2024 through July 30th, 2027.
June 30th.
Oh, I'm so sorry. June 30th, 2027.
Is there a second? Ms. Blickinger, any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposing?
I abstain.
The motion carries 801. We have one more candidate. Would anyone like to make a motion? Ms. Pullen?
I resolve to nominate Mrs. Renee Wilson, the incumbent located in the Cheektowaga Central School District, as a candidate for the election to be held on April 16th, 2024, to serve as a trustee for the Board of Cooperative Educational Services First Supervisory District of Erie County in a term beginning July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2027.
There a second? Ms. Kazmarak Bogdan? Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposing? So the motion carries 702. We have second public expression. There's no one here. Okay. Moving on. Item 17 and 18, there are no matters to discuss under instruction, curriculum, and legislative. Item 19, are any matters to discuss under committee of the whole? Our next meeting is a special board meeting and budget work session on March 26th with community forum to follow at the KC Middle School. I have a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting. Mr. Pascalia, Dr. Spicer. Motion carries unanimously.
I abstain.
And wish you all a happy Pi Day.
Moving.
He did.
9:57.
This meeting's on.
Right.
This is
Which is a light.